Chapter 291. Cough cough. Just as she was hesitating, the water had gradually turned cold. She couldn't delay any longer. Thus, she picked up a ribbon and covered her eyes. Then she held the hand of the person in the tub, and used the buoyancy of the water to pull him up and move him out of the wooden tub. The moment Chu Qingyan covered her eyes, the person who had his eyes closed slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was filled with disbelief, emotion, pity, and love. He reached out to hold on to the wooden tub, and moved himself out of the wooden tub without a trace. Chu Qingyan felt that this move seemed to be much easier than the last time. Even if she was blindfolded, she seemed to be able to find the right position of the bed. After placing the person on the bed, Chu Qingyan didn't dare to take off the ribbon immediately. Instead, she picked up a set of clean clothes that was placed beside the bed, and prepared to help Big Ice change into them. Xiao Su's gaze never left her. Watching her use all her strength to support him, watching her stupidly fumble around, and watching her clumsily help him put on his clothes, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved. She was blindfolded with the ribbon covering her pair of bright and clear eyes. The wide ribbon made her face look even more petite. The black hair scattered over her shoulders just happened to fall to her waist, shining with a faint luster. Wearing men's clothes made her figure look even more neat and slender. He felt that he hadn't looked at this little fellow properly for a long time. In this period of time, he found that she had grown taller, but also thinner. His heart was filled with pity. At this time, she had already reached over to help him put on his clothes. He cooperated with her by lifting his hands and legs without her noticing. Chu Qingyan's eyes were blindfolded, and she couldn't see the beautiful man in front of her. She also couldn't see the beautiful man's performance at this time. She was still complacent that she had the talent to do things blindfolded. After putting on his underwear, she took off the ribbon. When her eyes saw the light of day again, Xiao Su had already closed his eyes again. Chu Qingyan quickly helped him put on the rest of his clothes, and then covered him with the thick blanket. It was a success. She felt tired all her life. Lowering his head, he found that the Big Ice Cube's face was no longer as pale as before, but it still made his heart ache. Big Ice Cube, the medicinal bath was very successful. We have nearly 3 months of time. Then we can set off for Jiang country. You have to wake up quickly. She leaned against his ear and whispered. After straightening up, Chu Qingyan did not stay idle anymore. Instead, she opened the door and said to the people outside, "The medicinal bath is over. You can come in and help us clean up." While a 1, 2, 3, 7 heads popped out at once, Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched slightly. So these people were all hiding and watching. How cunning. I suddenly remembered that I have to prepare for the departure. I'll take my leave first. Turin touched his head, turned around as if nothing had happened, and ran away. I also have something to do. Turin coughed softly, then turned and left. I have to go and see if they're here yet. It's been so long, why is there still no sign of them? Mu Ling muttered and ran away. There's definitely not enough medicinal herbs. I'll go and ask Shafeng for more. Ethereal put his hand to his lips, then ran away in a hurry. Chu Qingyan turned to look at Cheng Yanluo, who was smiling sheepishly. She raised her hands and said innocently, I have no intention of running away. I'm just going to see how your Highness' medicinal bath is working. Cheng Yanluo slowly walked in. Chu Qingyan shrugged and stepped aside. Thus, oh my God, Chu Qingyan explained to me. Is there a flood in this room? Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled, then slipped away. Chu Qingyan, stop right there. Whoever stopped was an idiot. Chu Qingyan was in a great mood. Don't think that she didn't know that she had schemed against this medicinal bath. This was called revenge for a gentleman. It was never too late to wait a few hours. Ha ha ha. Cheng Yanluo put her hands on her hips and looked helplessly at the disappearing figure. She could only resign herself to fate and call for someone to clean up. The cost of cleaning up will be deducted from your consultation fee. Chu Qingyan walked out of the medical hall and stopped in front of a forest. She turned her back to the tree trunk and touched her sleeve, then took out a bamboo flute. She stroked the flute with her fingers. After a while, she put it to her lips and blew into it. The mellow sound of the flute echoed in the forest. After a while, she heard the sound of clothes fluttering in the wind. She smiled slightly. He's here. Hello, little girl. Aren't you taking care of your highness? Why are you still in the mood to summon me? An elegant voice came from above. There was a hint of jealousy in it, but only the person in question could hear it. Chu Qingyan left the tree trunk and looked up at the person on the branch. She was curious. Dongting, why do you always appear in this way? It's not novel at all. Higashio Motetsu raised his eyebrows and jumped down. He complained. Do you think this young master wants to do it? It's just so coincidental every time. It doesn't suit this young master's temperament at all. You have temperament? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. Higashio Motetsu felt embarrassed to be mocked by a little girl who was 6 years younger than him. But since she was 6 years younger than him, he was magnanimous and didn't bicker with her. Seeing that you're still in the mood to joke with me, it proves that your highness is out of danger. Higashio Motetsu leaned back with both hands and leaned against the tree trunk. His posture was indescribably carefree and leisurely, with a hint of devilish charm. Chu Qingyan stopped smiling and her eyes turned serious. Strictly speaking, he should be out of danger for the time being. Oh. Higashio Motetsu looked at her in surprise. What do you mean? Could it be that there's still an unforeseen event? He thought that if Xiao Su didn't have many good days left to live, then he would take a sword and force him to the medical hall to hand over the thing. Just as he had this thought, he was interrupted by Chu Qingyan's words. Snake's kiss poison originally had no cure. Fortunately, we found a doctor and obtained the prescription. But to cure this poison, we need 3 rare herbs in this world. Now we're still missing 2. One of them is missing and the other one is very difficult to obtain. I'm very worried. Chu Qingyan felt her head become heavy, and she couldn't help but lean against the tree trunk with a worried expression. So you called this young master out, because you want this young master to help you find the herbs? Higashio Motetsu's natural sense of superiority made him blurt out without thinking. Chu Qingyan shook her head. I wanted to say goodbye to you, because I'll be leaving here in a few days to look for herbs. Higashio Motetsu was slightly stunned that she didn't forget to say goodbye to him before leaving. He put away his playful expression. Then how did you know that I would be here? Chu Qingyan curved her lips but didn't answer. Should he ask her why? She also couldn't explain it clearly. Perhaps she had some suspicions in her heart, but she also had some expectations. Seeing that she didn't answer, Higashio Motetsu changed the topic. What herbs are you missing? Lovegrass, I still don't know where it is. As she spoke, her voice became softer. Higashio Motetsu felt that something was wrong. He turned his head and saw that small figure slowly sliding down the tree trunk. Little girl. Chapter 292. When Chu Qingyan fell, Higashio Motetsu was very surprised. He hurriedly reached out to grab her arm, and the scalding heat made him slightly startled. Without any hesitation, he pulled her into his embrace. In an instant, it was as if he was holding a fireball in his arms. Higashio Motetsu immediately raised his hand to her forehead. It was very hot. She was having a fever. What was going on? Why did she suddenly have a high fever? He suddenly remembered that she had been running in the rain for so long, and had to take care of Xiao Su. He suddenly understood. When Higashio Motetsu retracted his hand, he touched her sleeve. It was wet and cold. He was a little surprised. How did she get wet? He immediately shook the person in his arms and patted her face. Little girl, wake up. You can't fall asleep like this. At this time, the sun was already setting in the west. Winter nights always came earlier than other seasons. Once night came, the forest would be even colder. The little girl would definitely not be able to take it. However, no matter how he called out, the person in his arms did not respond. Zimo, come out for this young master. Higashio Motetsu roared. Xuanqi Zimo answered and appeared. Master, why are you looking for this subordinate? The little girl has a high fever. What should we do? Higashio Motetsu immediately asked. It's very simple. Let the fever go down first. Xuanqi Zimo looked at him as if his master was an idiot. Higashio Motetsu resisted the cross on his forehead. This young master also knows that the fever should go down first, but this young master is asking how to do it. Is your brain filled with paste? Xuanqi Zimo immediately looked at his master with a serious face. Just when Higashio Motetsu thought that he had some brilliant idea, he said with some difficulty, "Master, this subordinate is not good at medicine, so I don't know." Higashio Motetsu gave him a cold look. "If you don't know, then say so earlier." After saying that, Higashio Motetsu called out to her again. Unfortunately, there was no response at all. "What should we do now? Why is it getting hotter?" After being scolded, Xuanqi Zimo quickly came up with an idea. "Master, although we don't know how to reduce the fever, there is someone who can. Didn't Miss Chu stay in the medical hall before?" These words made Higashio Motetsu's eyes lit up. That's right. Xiao Su is also there. He was the one who took care of the little girl before. He has experience in taking care of children. Although he did not understand why, he did not to mention, he was the only person who had experience. As long as he could, he had a hot potato, he would have a way to treat the little girl's treatment. Thinking he Zimo Motetsu, and Zimo. When Zimo saw. At this time, the sky was already dark. It was winter, so the medical hall was closed for the day. Higashio Motetsu placed Zimo on the ground in front of the door. After hesitating for a moment, he took off his cloak and laid it on the ground. He then moved Zimo onto it, saying, "I must have owed you in my previous life. Otherwise, this young master would have been served by others my entire life. I've never served anyone so carefully and gently." The corner of Zimo's mouth twitched. His master was really a god who could lie through his teeth. How could his actions be considered gentle? If Miss Chu woke up now, she would probably give him a good beating. Higashio Motetsu picked up a stone and threw it at the wooden door. "Let's go." The two of them had just left when the door opened. Who is it? Who is so wicked as to throw a stone at the door? 11 opened the door and looked around. Seeing that there was no one around, he was about to close the door when he saw Chu Qingyan lying on the ground. "Big sister Chu, wake up. Someone come." Seeing that she did not wake up, 11 immediately shouted. Someone quickly came out and hurriedly carried Zimo inside. Xuanqi Zimo glanced at his master, who was standing in the corner. Actually, his master was also very concerned about Miss Chu. Seeing that they had been discovered, Higashio Motetsu smoothed out the creases on his sleeves, then said to the people beside him, "All right, let's go. Little girl, we'll meet again in the future." At this moment, Xiao Su was lying on the bed. His eyes, which had been tightly shut for the past few days, had finally opened. He was still a little shocked by everything that the little girl had done for him today. Why didn't he tell her that he was awake? It was probably because he was afraid that she would feel awkward and shy. In the book of parenting, it was written that children after the age of 10 were more emotional, shy, and independent. Thus, in order to prevent her from feeling uncomfortable, he had not woken up at that time. However, it was also because of this that he had the opportunity to see another side of her. Smart, sly, and steady. She had already grown a lot along the way. Even when he wasn't paying attention. He had not noticed when he was not paying attention. Moreover, since no one had noticed that he had woken up, he had the time to sort out the things that had happened recently. He still remembered the words that the little girl had said to him. "If you survive this crisis, then your life is mine. If I tell you to go west, then you're not allowed to go east. If I tell you to put down those so-called responsibilities, then you're not allowed to shoulder them. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you." If he could live a lifetime for himself, he would be willing. However, he did not know why the little girl had not returned. He did not know where she had run off to. At this moment, the door was pushed open. Xiao Su turned his head at the sound, but when he saw who it was, the faint light in his eyes disappeared. Cheng Yanluo looked at the person on the bed and teased. "What's wrong? When you realized that I wasn't the person you wanted to see, you put on a cold face. Can't you see that I'm your savior? Be careful, or I'll make you come in on a stretcher and leave on a stretcher." "Nice to meet you, Miss Cheng." Xiao Su ignored the sarcasm in her words. "You actually know me?" Cheng Yanluo was a little surprised, but she soon found the reason. Perhaps the little girl had often nagged him when he was unconscious. Xiao Su did not deny it. Seeing him so gloomy, Cheng Yanluo began to wonder how he got along with the little lass. She had come here to look for the little lass, but the little lass was not around. She turned around and wanted to leave. Moreover, this person was someone she disliked. She did not want to stay in the same room with him. Miss Chung, if Ethereal had offended you in any way, I apologize on his behalf. If I had unintentionally offended Miss Chung, I'm very sorry. An indifferent voice sounded behind her. The apology in his voice was indeed hard to ignore. His words surprised Cheng Yanluo. She turned to look at the person on the bed in disbelief. She had heard that the King of England was a man of his word. He was cold-blooded and heartless. Why would he apologize to someone? It was scarier than the sun rising in the west. Xiao Su didn't care about Cheng Yanluo's mood at the moment. The thing that the little girl mentioned the most to him was about Kong Ling and her. So much so that he had blurted it out without thinking. It seemed that he had been influenced by the little girl. At this moment, there was a rush of footsteps. Senior sister, Sister Chu has fainted. Chapter 293. Xiao Su immediately sat up when he heard that the little fellow had a high fever, despite his injuries. Cheng Yanluo said to the outside, "Bring her to the West Wing ward. I'll go take a look." As soon as he said this, Xiao Su immediately objected. "Bring him into this room." Cheng Yanluo was about to retort when she saw Turan carrying Chu Qingyan quickly walking towards them. She frowned but didn't say anything. She immediately followed them into the room. Xiao Su had already stepped forward to take Chu Qingyan the moment Turan entered the room. He could feel her burning body the moment he touched her. His gaze was cold as he immediately carried her to the bed. He raised his hand to touch her little face. It was pale and bloodless. She was no longer as lively as before. His heart wrenched. "Your Highness, let me take the little girl's pulse first." Cheng Yanluo immediately stepped forward. Hearing this, Xiao Su stepped back to give her some space. Cheng Yanluo sat on the bed and took her pulse. Suddenly she frowned. The cold has invaded her body for more than a day or two. It has accumulated to the point that she has a high fever. She should have felt dizzy before this, but the little girl didn't say anything. Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but look at the person beside her. It seems that she didn't care about her own body in order to take care of you. Perhaps she didn't care at all. After you took the medicinal bath, she relaxed and fell ill. Xiao Su remained silent and didn't reply. His gaze was fixed on the person on the bed. Cheng Yanluo turned to look at Chu Qingyan. "I'll prescribe some medicine for her first. Let's see if the fever will subside tonight. If it doesn't." "What if it doesn't subside?" Xiao Su frowned and looked at her. Cheng Yanluo sighed. "At her age, if the fever isn't treated properly, it will affect her development in the future. For example, her intelligence." Cheng Yanluo didn't say it clearly, but everyone present was Ling Long's people. How could they not know what she meant? If the fever didn't subside, then Chu Qingyan would most likely become a fool. Xiao Su closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his entire body was as cold as ice. "Go and boil the medicine first. Her fever must be brought down by tonight." Cheng Yanluo didn't like it when others spoke to her in a commanding tone. However, she wasn't bothered by it at all. I'll get someone to arrange Qingyan's room first." Cheng Yanluo stood up and said. "No need. She's with this prince," said Xiao Su without even thinking about it. When Cheng Yanluo saw that there was nothing unusual in the room, she understood what was going on. She did not want to waste time on this issue. Instead, she said to Turan and the others before she left, "The patient needs fresh air now. You'd better leave first." Tu Ling and the others glanced at their master. After receiving his permission, they retreated. The door closed and the room fell silent. Xiao Su sat down and raised his hand to brush the hair in front of the little fellow's forehead, revealing her full and smooth forehead. He gently stroked her hair. The scorching heat rubbed against his fingertips. He held her cold fingertips tenderly, trying to warm her up. "Little fellow, don't be afraid. This prince won't let you become a fool," he said softly. What he got in response was a painful moan. Xiao Su's brows were tightly knitted, and he couldn't calm them down. At this moment, Little 10 came in with a basin of water, and 11 came in with a bowl of medicine. Little 10 said, "Your Highness, My senior sister said that she'll rub a cloth and stick it on big sister Chu's forehead to help her reduce her fever. 11 continued. This is the medicine my senior sister asked me to boil. She needs to drink it while it's hot. Put it down. Xiao raised his hand and ordered. Little 10 and 11 looked at each other. Was His Highness planning to take care of big sister Chu himself? An injured patient taking care of a sick patient? But the two of them obediently put down the things, told him what to pay attention to, and the two of them went out. Xiao got up and took the bowl of medicine. He lifted her up and hugged her to his chest. Then he put the bowl close to her lips, and then he lifted her chin with his finger. She cooperatively opened her mouth slightly and drank the medicine. This was the experience he had from taking care of the little fellow before, and now it was easy to use. If Chu Qingyan saw this scene, she would probably vomit blood in anger. Why was it so easy for her to feed the medicine, but he had to coax her? This wasn't fair at all. After feeding the medicine, Xiao wiped the corner of her mouth with a brocade cloth, and then put her down. When he got up again, a small hand somehow grabbed the corner of his clothes. He lowered his head and turned to look at her face, only to see that she was still unconscious. And this action was just subconscious. He bent down, intending to move her little hand away, but he heard a low pleading voice. Don't go, don't go. He couldn't help but look at her. He didn't know who she was telling not to go. After hesitating for a moment, he replied, I'm not going, don't be afraid. With that, he put her hand back into the quilt, and then carried the water basin to the chair. He wrung out the cloth towel, folded it into a square, and stuck it on her forehead. Then he sat down again. Looking at this pale face, Xiao couldn't help but think of the previous times when she was poisoned and injured. It seemed that in his memory, she was either as fresh as the sun, or as weak as a soft willow. But no matter if it was the past or the present, he hoped that she was happy and healthy. Little fellow, why are you so stupid? Why did you come back? If you didn't come back, you wouldn't have encountered so many things. A person in his childhood encountered something, and it was destined that his memories of his youth would be filled with color. He didn't want the little fellow's childhood to be filled with fear and endless darkness. Big Ice Cube, don't go, I don't want you to go. I want you to live. The low moaning voice sounded again. This time he heard it very clearly, and his gaze was a little dazed. He didn't expect that in her dreams, she was still thinking about him. Her voice was filled with fear and worry, and it was like a chain that firmly locked his heart. I'm not going. I won't go again. Xiao reached out to caress her face, his eyes full of love. Suddenly, Chu Qingyan reached out and grabbed his hand that was on her face tightly. Big Ice Cube, don't leave, I beg you, they don't want you, I want you, I beg you. I just want you to wake up, don't leave me. Chu Qingyan's face was suddenly filled with tears. Her voice was choked, as if she was about to lose the most important treasure in her life. The hand that was touching her cheek was stained with her hot tears. Xiao's heart felt like it had been hit hard, and there were still layers of ripples in his heart. They don't want you, I want you. I beg you, don't leave. I just want you to wake up. Since he was young, what he saw the most was conspiracy, blood, and killing. He thought that his life would pass like this. He never thought that there would be such a person, crying and shouting as long as he was safe. Chapter 294. At that moment, Xiao felt as if his heart had cracked open. Instead of cold wind, it was warm light that poured in. He suddenly realized that he had found what he had been searching for nearly 20 years in her body. He had thought that he was too far away from warmth. However, she did not expect to see a warmth that she had never experienced before in this little fellow. Little fellow, wake up quickly if you don't want me to leave. Xiao held her hand tightly, suppressing the bitterness and worry in his throat. If God had finally let him go after torturing him for so many years, he would not take her away. Since she was already here, he would not allow her to leave. Chu Qingyan seemed to have sensed a familiar aura around her. Slowly, she stopped sobbing and fell into a coma again. Her fever had yet to subside. 2 hours later, Cheng Yanluo came in to check on her. She found that the fever had not subsided. Instead, it seemed to be increasing in temperature. She immediately changed the medicine and instructed Xiao to feed her. Xiao Su held her pale little hand and agreed. Before Cheng Yanluo left, she saw a hint of pain in Xiao Su's calm eyes. She could not help but sigh in her heart. He was also a man with a hard life. Forget it. She would write off all the resentment she had against him. After all, he was only an indirect factor back then. If she really wanted to blame someone, she could only blame fate and fate. She turned to leave, only to see a man looking at her in the moonlight. Cheng Yanluo pretended not to see him, and was about to walk past him. Xiao Yan, I'm sorry, Ethereal said, bowing his head. Cheng Yanluo closed her eyes. She had waited 6 years for this apology, but it was too late. Because her heart was already tired. How could she let a heart riddled with holes wait for a relationship that had yet to blossom? She didn't stop walking, forcing herself not to look back. Morongju, if I could choose, I would rather not have met you. The moment the cold wind blew, Ethereal clenched his hands. He wanted to stop her, but he knew clearly in his heart that Xiao Yan hated him. Xiao Yan's hatred for him had been engraved into her bones. No matter what he said, she would never forgive herself. However, if there was hatred, then it was fine. If there was no hatred, then it would be the most despairing. On a moonlit night, who would be happy and who would be sad? No one knows. Who would pity her if she were to be given the winter wind and the cold moon? After Xiao Su fed her the second bowl of medicine, Chu Qingyan's body temperature began to show signs of subsiding. However, he remembered Cheng Yanluo's instructions. She had used a strong medicine for this prescription, and she couldn't guarantee that it wouldn't relapse in the middle of the night. She had asked him to be careful. The sleeping person did not wake up. Time passed bit by bit, but it made people wait anxiously. He suddenly thought, when he was in a coma these days, was the little fellow also worried about him like this? He was a little regretful. He should have told her that he had woken up today, so that she wouldn't have to suffer the pain of fear in her dream again. A touch of bitterness appeared in the corner of his mouth. Xiao Su held her hand and said slowly, I remember that during the period when I was in a coma, you talked to me a lot. This time, it's my turn to talk to you. He still remembered that when he was wandering in the dark, it was the little fellow who didn't give up. Every sentence she said constantly filled the scenery around him. Every time he was ready to leave, it was her cries, her reluctance, and her regret. Like vines, she wrapped his limbs tightly, making him unable to leave, and then waited for the dawn to come. My identity was destined the moment I was born. I was the legitimate prince of the Sichuan kingdom. It was also destined that I would live an unequal life. When I was young, I didn't understand. I thought that as long as I worked hard and became successful, they would look at me. Unfortunately, they didn't. Later, I thought that if I became an irreplaceable person, would they also look at me? But in the end, he smiled bitterly, I became a thorn in their side, a stumbling block that they wanted to get rid of. I didn't understand. Why didn't everything develop according to Imperial Mother's plan? Until that big fire ignited. In order to protect me, the people around me were killed one by one in front of me. Blood flowed like a river in the palace. The fire burned red. When I was 10 years old, my eyes were red. Red blood, red fire, and then everything was swallowed up. Little fellow, in the past, I used to envy the children of the common people. Although they didn't live a rich life and didn't have servants, they had family ties that I didn't have. Because of this, they could easily defeat me. He caressed her face and smiled faintly. Little fellow, have you already guessed the other mission that Imperial Father gave me? Was that why you weren't willing to leave me in the forest? He didn't wait for a reply from the person on the bed, but he wasn't disappointed. Instead, he continued, originally, I had planned to hand over the remaining military power after I was released from prison, and take you away from the Imperial Court. But Imperial Father was one step ahead of me and proposed a mission. Although different paths lead to the same goal, what he wanted was also my military power and my departure. However, the departure he wanted was different from the departure I wanted. That night of kneeling, Imperial Father's injustice, and Imperial Mother's disappointment, he pondered for a long time. Suddenly he understood many things. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth, but there wasn't a trace of sorrow. As a person in power, one must have a cold-blooded heart. Even towards one's own son, it was the same. The person he wanted to support wasn't me, so I wasn't surprised. Or rather, 10 years ago, I had already understood. But little fellow, there are many things in this world that you can't avoid even if you want to. I don't want to fight for power, but my mother and the Liang family need me to fight for them. My mother gave birth to me, and the Liang family raised my mother. I can't abandon them. But after so many years, I've only done enough for them to keep the Fu family in check. I can't afford to do more than that. I can't give more than that. Because I'm worried that if I give too much, a person's heart will swell, and it will be out of control. He closed his eyes. In other people's eyes, you are not the best. No matter how much you fight for it, it won't change. Since this is the case, why should I fight for it? Imperial father only had fourth imperial brother in his heart. Since this couldn't be changed, no matter how hard he tried, it would be useless. I know, you must be secretly saying that I shouldn't be so foolishly loyal. I shouldn't have agreed to these unequal treaties, and I shouldn't have taken on these missions. But little fellow, I'm first a citizen of the Sichuan, and then a prince. If the country needs me, I must contribute my ability to punish evil and get justice for the people, and return peace to the Sichuan. I've lived alone for so many years, and I don't want those children to repeat my mistakes. But now I know that I still have you. I'm no longer alone. Chapter 295. After speaking intermittently, Xiao felt the depression in his chest slowly dissipate. He couldn't help curling his lips. The little fellow was right. Once there was something in his heart, he shouldn't keep suppressing it. Otherwise, every step he took would become heavier and heavier. One day he would be crushed. For so many years, he had never mentioned this to anyone. On one hand, he felt that it was unnecessary. Only the weak would talk about their suffering. On the other hand, he didn't have anyone to talk to. If the people around him didn't obey him, then they would scheme against him. Xiao once again raised his hand to stroke her long hair. It was soft but not greasy. The hard lines on his cheeks slowly softened, and his expression was calm. Little fellow, if you can wake up, this king will grant you a wish. Chu Qingyan aimlessly walked in the desert. This world was like a furnace. No matter where she went, there would be waves of heat. The sand under her feet seemed to want to drill into the soles of her feet. It was a heart-wrenching pain. There was no one around her, no trees, no water. There was only the scorching sun above her head that was constantly emitting its light. If this went on, she would be roasted to death. She suddenly remembered a Weibo joke she had seen before. Between me and roasted meat, there was only a pinch of cumin. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Was this a dream? But why did it feel so real? Her body was so hot. The sand was so hot. She finally couldn't bear it anymore. Her lips were dry and cracked. Even if she was lying on the ground, her skin was burned and she couldn't move. Thirsty. Her mouth felt like it was stuffed with sand. It was painful and dry. Just as she was about to lose consciousness, a sweet spring water poured into her mouth. Was it raining? She was in a daze. Just as she was in a daze, she suddenly heard someone say something in her ear. It was near and far. It was magnetic and low, like the sound of nature. The more she couldn't hear it, the more she wanted to know what he was saying. It wasn't until later that she heard the last sentence. Little fellow, if you can wake up, this king will grant you a wish. Wish. She suddenly opened her eyes. They stared at each other. Big Ice Cube, you're awake? You're awake? The two of them said in unison. Before she could react, she saw the person who had always pursed his lips into a thin line suddenly curl the corners of his lips. In the blink of an eye, thousands of pear trees bloomed, and resplendent stars bloomed in the sky. Big Ice Cube, are you smiling? She couldn't help but rub her eyes. Was this really not a dream? Hearing her words, Xiao stopped smiling, but his tone was very strict. You still have the mood to care about other things now. Chu Qingyan didn't understand why the atmosphere suddenly changed. You disobeyed my orders and came back without permission. You didn't take good care of yourself and fell sick instead, huh? The lively appearance of the person in front of him made him finally put down the big stone in his heart, and he couldn't help but hold her hand tighter. Chu Qingyan's mind was still processing what was going on, but when she heard the 2 consecutive MMS and the threatening tone, her heart trembled. You what? Xiao raised his voice and looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. Her face turned red from his words. Xiao sighed softly. This kind of lively appearance was more suitable for her. Chu Qingyan felt that no matter what she said, it would be wrong. Her mind turned and she immediately smiled. She reached out to grab his arm when he wasn't paying attention and said coquettishly, "Isn't this my first offense? There won't be a next time." "You still want a next time?" Xiao glanced at her. Hearing this, she immediately raised her hand. "I promise, I'll listen to you from now on and won't disregard your orders." After saying this, she secretly added in her heart, "Unless there's a special situation." After saying this, she shook his arm and giggled. "Is your highness satisfied like this?" Although her tone was filled with joy, her voice was still hoarse from just waking up. He suppressed the reproach in his heart. In fact, he was also very clear in his heart that the little fellow had come back to save him. If she had not rushed over, perhaps everything would have been different. But he had to say something. He didn't want this kind of experience to happen again. If there's a next time, don't act on your own initiative. Be obedient and live well. Hearing this, she couldn't help but recall that night when Yan Luo said that his will to live was weak. She rubbed against his sleeve and said with a little sadness in her voice, "Big Ice Cube, I want to ask you a question. Answer me honestly." The little fellow's sudden seriousness made him a little uncomfortable. The hand he raised in the air gently fell down. "Ask away. Why didn't you have the motivation to live back then?" She raised her head and looked into his eyes, as if she wanted to see into his heart. She asked with great care, word by word. She wanted to confirm one thing. Xiaosu's hand paused. He had already guessed that with the little fellow's temperament, she wouldn't let go of this question. It wasn't that she didn't have the motivation, but that she felt that it was meaningless. "There's no reason." He lowered his eyes. His thick eyelashes covered all his pain. She knew that she couldn't get an answer from him, but she still didn't want to give up. Not only did she want to confirm one thing, she also wanted to prevent this kind of thing from happening. She was such a strong ice cube. She couldn't have such an unsolvable knot in her heart, and a weak spot that couldn't withstand a single blow. "Did the Sichuan emperor force you?" Chu Qingyan asked without hesitation. "Qingyan, don't talk nonsense." Xiao patted her head. Although his tone was very strict, his expression was very calm. Chu Qingyan pinched his fingers without any fear. "Okay, I won't say it. But I know that I'm not talking nonsense. I heard the conversation between you and the cloaked man. It's just that I feel very sorry for you. How many bad things did you do in your previous life to have such a father in this life?" "Qingyan, didn't she say that she wouldn't say it? Why was she still nagging?" Xiao felt that he was really helpless with this little fellow. "Big Ice Cube, don't keep calling my name. I know it's very nice." Chu Qingyan pretended to pick her ears, then looked at him with a smile. "Big Ice Cube, don't be sad. Your life was saved by me. It has nothing to do with the Sichuan imperial family. The things you did to Sichuan in the past are enough. Your identity ends here." Xiao raised his eyebrows. He didn't know what other shocking things this little fellow would say. "When I awakened your will, I had already thought it through. Your life is mine, so I order you to not be responsible for anything. From today onwards, you have been reborn. You can properly repay the kindness of giving birth to you. But your current identity is not only the master of the Shaolai Mount, but also my Chu Qingyan's Big Ice Cube. If you have anything you want to do in the future, please consider it first before we make a decision. Furthermore, I won't allow you to give up on yourself and exile yourself." Chu Qingyan declared domineeringly. Chapter 296. Strictly speaking, her hoarse voice wasn't pleasant to the ears. However, Xiao couldn't help but tremble when those words came out of her petite body. If it were any other day, anyone who dared to speak to him in such a domineering tone would have been beheaded. However, he could hear her fear, her pretense to be strong, and her forced smile in those domineering words. She was still uneasy, afraid that she would leave him one day. Xiao smirked. However, the little fellow didn't know that when he decided to let go of his obsession, he was no longer the Xiao Su who lived for Sichuan. Life was long, and he suddenly wanted to live for himself. Xiao Su couldn't help but reach out and carry her into his arms. His movements were gentle as he replied softly, "Okay." Tu Qingyan stared blankly as she rambled on. She was afraid that he would laugh at her for overestimating herself. However, the moment she finished speaking, she got a response from him. She was very emotional, but also very sad. She was emotional because she didn't expect him to agree. At most, he would just laugh it off, but he agreed. She was sad because after being emotional, what was left was her heartache for him. It must be very difficult to let go of her obsession for so many years. Big Ice Cube, from now on, I have you, and you have me. We won't be lonely anymore. Tu Qingyan reached out and hugged him back. There was no need for any more emotional words. She knew that the Big Ice Cube didn't need them. Letting go was actually fulfilling her wish. Xiao Su gently patted her back and replied mildly. Tu Qingyan's fever subsided, and the tense atmosphere in the courtyard dissipated. Cheng Yanluo went to the door to check her pulse. After confirming that she was fine, she said, "For the next few days, eat some plain porridge and pickled vegetables. Don't touch anything else." "I can't touch anything? Not even pastries and the like?" Xining, who had been brought back, was standing by the bed. She knew that her mistress liked these snacks the most. Suddenly returning to the days of pickled vegetables, she couldn't bear it. Cheng Yanluo raised a finger and pointed at the coughing dog. "Are you sure your master can eat anything other than plain porridge?" Tu Qingyan wanted to hold it in, but her throat was too itchy. The more she coughed, the worse it got. Xining could only spread her hands in front of her mistress. She had already tried her best. On the other hand, Xiao Su had already silently memorized all the things that should be taboo for the little guy. Tu Qingyan felt that the process of recuperation was very painful. However, the injuries on Xiao Su's body were still in critical condition. Therefore, one injured and the other sick began to recuperate. However, in less than 2 days, the wound on Xiao Su's chest was no longer a problem. The main problem was that Tu Qingyan was still coughing. "Big Ice Cube, when are we leaving?" Tu Qingyan was a little impatient. She knew that time waited for no man. Every day that passed was the hope of finding the ice crystal flower. "No hurry." He bent over the table and wrote something. She couldn't remember how many times she had asked and how many times he had answered. Xining covered her mouth and snickered. She was already used to this scene that happened every day, but she still found it very interesting. She didn't know what had happened during her absence, but she felt that the relationship between her mistress and His Highness seemed to be better than before. If Tu Qingyan knew what she was thinking, she would definitely ridicule her mistress. Which eye of hers saw that they were better than before? Not to mention that she had taken away her snacks. She could only watch others eat and drink delicious food while she could only eat steamed buns, pickled vegetables and tofu. In fact, except for the day when she had a high fever, she had continued to have a low fever for several days. It was only today that she got better. A few days ago, she had coughed so much that she almost coughed her lungs out. She had already forgotten when she had a bad cold. But this was the first time she had been hovering between life and death. Xiao Su finished writing the letter in his hand and folded it into an envelope. He called Turin in and handed it to him so that he could send it out. Tu Qingyan was a little curious about what he had written inside. When he sat down in front of her, she couldn't help but ask, "That letter, who did you write it to?" "An old friend." Xiao Su didn't hide it from her. Old friend? She originally wanted to ask him what was written inside. But she was attracted by the person. "Big Ice Cube, I didn't expect you to have a friend too?" Surprised? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Tu Qingyan then realized that she had said something that she shouldn't have said. She hurriedly laughed and said, No, I just want to know what kind of person can become friends with Big Ice Cube." "A butterfly." Xiao Su thought for a while and gave a pertinent answer. A butterfly?" Tu Qingyan was a little incredulous. "A woman?" "No, a man." Xiao Su thought of that friend and his head hurt a little. Passing through 10,000 flowers, not a single leaf touched him. It was tailor-made for him. Tu Qingyan unconsciously sighed in relief. Then she leaned against the bed and said with a smile, "Does he look like the second prince?" Thinking of his second royal brother, Xiao said indifferently, "Jackals of the same tribe." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Big Ice Cube was really ruthless with his words. But she was still very curious about that butterfly. To be able to become Big Ice Cube's friend, he must have something special about him. Seeing that she was deep in thought, Xiao said, "You will see him when you reach Jiang country." Chu Qingyan nodded, thinking that she was probably going to ask for his help. Does Big Ice Cube have any other old friends? There's another one in Jiangnan. If there's a chance, this prince will take you to see him. Another figure appeared in Xiao's mind. Thin as bamboo, handsome as a tree. They hadn't seen each other for many years. Is it a man? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask. Yes. Xiao didn't notice that she sighed in relief because of his answer. Seeing Xining bring a bowl of medicine, he took it. In fact, even she didn't understand why she had such worries. Before she could think about it, she saw the bitter medicine that night. She immediately shrank back into the quilt. I've already recovered. I don't want to drink it. She stuck out her little head and protested, then quickly shrank back. Are you sure? Xiao held the bowl and raised his eyebrows at her. When Chu Qingyan heard these threatening words, she felt a little unsure. She felt that in the end, she would definitely compromise under his obscenity. Since that was the case, why not fight for some benefits for herself? I can drink the medicine, but I have a condition. Chu Qingyan stuck out her little head again, revealing a pair of ears and a pair of bright and spirited eyes. This is your own body. Xiao looked at her indifferently. That's my body. I make the decision. I don't want to drink it. Chu Qingyan proudly retorted. Say it. What's the condition? Xiao's eyes flashed with helplessness. I want to eat osmanthus cake tonight, she said loudly, then carefully glanced at him. Xiao thought of Cheng Yanluo's words today. The little fellow didn't need to avoid eating anything. So he nodded. I'll prepare a plate of osmanthus cake for you every day, but you have to finish the medicine. Moreover, you can't refuse to drink the medicine until you go to Jiang. Deal. Chu Qingyan smiled proudly. Sure enough, acting spoiled and cute was the most useful. However, Xining, who knew the truth, covered her face. She wanted to tell her master the good news, but, Master, this servant can only say that you've been tricked by His Highness. Chapter 297. Due to the increasing number of patients in the clinic, Cheng Yanluo didn't have time to take care of Chu Qingyan, so she left it to Xiao. Thus, Ethereal was in charge of the follow-up. Chu Qingyan nibbled on the fruit in her hand. She had heard that Huoling and the others had picked it when they were patrolling the mountains. She looked down at Ethereal, who was seriously checking her pulse, and blurted out, Have you explained things clearly to Yanluo? Ethereal's hand paused. He looked away and said, I don't think I can explain things clearly. When she heard Ethereal's discouraged words, Chu Qingyan took a big bite of the fruit and said angrily, I knew you couldn't settle it. Aren't you always efficient? Why are you so wishy-washy when it comes to matters of the heart? Chu Qingyan's shameless boasting right now would give her the urge to dig a hole and hide in it when she thought of this day many years later. Ethereal felt defeated. I don't have a choice. Once little Yin has decided on something, there's no way to change it. Forget it, forget it. Let me give you a suggestion. Chu Qingyan felt that if she continued to watch the two of them struggle, she, as an outsider, was afraid that she would be dragged into the game. Ethereal was curious. Young Princess Consort, what kind of suggestion do you have? What kind of suggestion could this person, who didn't even reach his chest, have? I have 3 treasures here. The first is to cry, the second is to throw a tantrum, and the third is to hang oneself. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes and smiled. Ethereal's expression turned ugly. Are you sure this isn't a method that women usually use? Don't you think that your junior sister Xiaoyan is more suitable for this kind of tactic? Chu Qingyan looked at him seriously. Young Princess Consort, I have other matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. Ethereal felt that his brain must be fried for him to think of discussing such matters with the young Princess Consort. Okay. I have another idea. Chu Qingyan hurriedly asked him to stay. Ethereal looked at her suspiciously this time. Chu Qingyan cleared her throat and then said to him seriously, "First, you are shameless. Second, you are determined to be shameless. Third, you are extremely shameless." As soon as she said this, the ethereal had already withered in the wind. He couldn't even finish his sentence before he left. Little Princess Consort, this subordinate will take his leave. Hey! Chu Qingyan wanted to stop him, but he ran faster than a rabbit. Chu Qingyan felt frustrated. She took a bite of the fruit and said angrily, "Damn it, I worried for nothing. Don't you know that this is a very famous saying? His words are crude, but his reasoning is not crude." What famous words? Xiao walked in from outside and heard her muttering. Chu Qingyan coughed lightly and immediately changed the topic. "Big ice cube, this fruit is very delicious, do you want one too?" Xiao knew her temperament and didn't ask any more questions. "We can set off for Jiang country tomorrow," Xiao said. Chu Qingyan, who had just finished eating the fruit, was looking for a brocade cloth to wipe her hands when she heard this news. She couldn't help but smile. "We can finally set off. We've been delayed for 4 to 5 days. No rush. If it's fated, it will be there. If it's not fated, don't force it." Xiao picked up the brocade cloth from the shelf and sat on the couch to wipe her fingers. Chu Qingyan looked at him carefully wiping the juice off her hands and felt a little emotional. The person who gave her the cold shoulder when they first met, she never thought that there would be a day when he would take care of her so carefully. "I will definitely let you live. If it's not fated, I will snatch it for you." Chu Qingyan had a determined expression, looking like she would fight with her life on the line. Xiao shook his head and said with a smile, "With you like this, it's good enough if you don't get crushed to pieces. Big ice cube, how can you be like this? Can't you speak properly?" Chu Qingyan felt like her heart had been pierced by an arrow. Xiao spread his hands. If she didn't want him to speak the truth, then he wouldn't say it. Chu Qingyan was amused by his attitude. However, what he said was indeed the truth. Right now, even protecting herself was a problem, and she still hoped to fight with her life on the line. To put it bluntly, she was overestimating herself. Then she chuckled and said, "Big ice cube, don't be afraid. I will really do what I say." These words were much more serious and sloppy than before, but Xiao could hear the seriousness hidden in her joke. He wanted to laugh at her, but he couldn't bear to say it. In the end, he raised his hand and stroked her hair. It was better not to hurt a child's enthusiasm too much, or she would lose her ambition in the future. She knew that the big ice cube didn't have high hopes for her, but she didn't want to be looked down upon like this. Perhaps in the past, she did want to be a leech, but that was already in the past. What she wanted to do most now was to protect his health. So no matter the price, she had to do it. In a corner where Xiao couldn't see, Chu Qingyan's eyes flashed with determination. Capital's Imperial City. In the quiet Imperial study, Sichuan Emperor opened the secret report he had just received. It was written on it. The King of England has been poisoned by Snake's Kiss. The whereabouts of his body are unknown. He was very clear about the toxicity of Snake's Kiss. A trace of pain flashed across his face, but it was quickly replaced by relief. He put away the secret report, then lowered his head and asked the person kneeling on the ground, "What did your lord say?" "My lord said that he shot the arrow with his own hands and saw the King of England being poisoned with his own eyes. So the King of England should be gone." The man in black bowed his head and replied. Sichuan Emperor nodded, but he was still a little worried. In the past, he had been able to escape from death in the battles at the border. So he ordered, "Go and tell your lord that if he's alive, I want to see his body." Yes. The man in black retreated. Sichuan Emperor sat quietly on the dragon throne, and a complicated expression appeared on his face. During this period of time, the people he had sent out had written to him to inform him of Suer's disappearance. But only he knew what this disappearance meant. But when he actually received the letter, he still felt a little absent-minded. For so many years, it wasn't that he hadn't deliberately tried to weaken Suer's power, but he could only watch him climb to the top of power step by step. Everyone knew that he had an outstanding prince named Xiao. the first prince of the Sichuan royal family, and the King of England praised by the people. Now, all the ministers wanted him to appoint a crown prince. He knew that the ministers in the court were also discerning. Seeing that his eldest son had made great achievements, his character and knowledge were excellent, and his fourth son had begun to show his talent, the two of them would have a fight sooner or later. In order to avoid bloodshed, they proposed to appoint a crown prince at this time. As for him, he had only thought of this method because he was forced to the point where he had no other choice. The scene of that day surfaced in his mind. When he was in the imperial study and talked with Su'er, who had just been released from prison, he didn't seem surprised at all. Now that he thought about it, Sichuan emperor understood. This child was still too smart. But Su'er, a mountain cannot accommodate two tigers. Born in the royal family, you must be prepared to be sacrificed. I hope you don't blame your imperial father for being cruel. Chapter 298. What? Xiao disappeared? Imperial concubine Moon listened to the words of the black-cloaked man in front of her, and her face was filled with surprise and joy. That's right. The assassin group I sent out didn't succeed in assassinating Xiao, but he seems to have provoked a lot of enemies. One of them, who was dressed in a cloak, shot an arrow through Xiao's chest. I heard that he has been poisoned and is not far from death, the black-cloaked man said in a flat tone. That's great, Xiao is finally dead. Haha. I've waited for so many years and now I've finally realized this wish of mine. I can finally hold my head up high. Imperial concubine Moon laughed out loud. Because of her joy, her dignified and beautiful face became a bit fierce. The black-cloaked man looked at her, and could not help but sigh softly, drawing her attention back to the present. However, don't be too happy just yet. The members of the assassin group have yet to find his body. Everything can only be confirmed after they find his body. Good, it's best if he dies without a burial place. I heard that there are many jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards in that kind of forest. If we're not careful. Consort Yu's smile was terrifying. The cloaked man didn't say anything else. He turned to leave, but Consort Yu called out to him. You've worked hard this time. I heard that the people from your sect were injured because of this? Consort Yu stopped smiling and asked worriedly. You're welcome. They were only injured because they weren't as skilled. There's nothing much to say. Also, I told you before that if you need me, you can send people to the Moon Palace to find me. The cloaked man said calmly. When the black figure left the palace, Consort Yu was a little disappointed. Senior Marshal brother, do you still care about how I insisted on entering the palace back then? But her eyes shone brightly. Everything that I wanted back then is slowly gathering in my hands now. Liang Yuan, I said before that one day, I will take back everything that belongs to me. First, it was your precious son. Next, it will be you. That pair of gentle eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. Chu Qingyan didn't know how many people thousands of miles away were hoping that they would die halfway. She held a plate of pastries and sat in the courtyard, basking in the sun. Recently, she had been staying in her room. If she didn't get some sun, she would get moldy. Xining walked to her side with a cup of tea, then saw her master staring at a certain place and laughing. She couldn't help but follow her gaze. He saw Hualing and Muling bringing Xiao Laiqi and the others to repair the roof of the thatched hut. Mistress, this. The usually aloof and unapproachable Xiao Laiqi was doing this kind of thing after resigning. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Chu Qingyan saw Xining's behavior. She couldn't accept that a tall, rich, and handsome man was doing such a down-to-earth thing. Chu Qingyan took a bite of the pastry and said disapprovingly, "Don't make a fuss. Anyway, they are idle. Why don't they do something meaningful?" Hearing the young princess consort's evaluation, Hualing and the others felt wronged. At this moment, Xiao walked over. Hualing and the others thought that they saw their savior and immediately shouted, "Mistress, we are here." Xiao glanced at them. Then there was no more. Hualing and the others froze. Normally, shouldn't he ask what they were doing up there? Then they could logically tell him that the heartless young princess consort had called them to repair the roof. But, there were no buts. Mistress was becoming less and less concerned about them. The injured Hualing, and the others could only quietly repair the roof. It's windy outside. Don't run around. Xiao Su reminded them and went in. Chu Qingyan waved her paws at his back, then continued to eat the pastries. At this moment, an angry Cheng Yanluo strode over. Chu Qingyan saw that the situation was not good and wanted to run away, but the other party obviously noticed her intention. She strode over and blocked her way. Chu Qingyan chuckled and immediately raised the plate in her hand. She smiled and said, "Sister Yanluo, my Huangyi makes delicious pastries. Do you want to try them?" Cheng Yanluo imitated her smile, then pushed away her plate with one hand and tapped her forehead with her index finger. She said aggressively, "Tell me the truth. What did you say to that bastard Morongju? Why does he seem to be a different person?" "Nothing." Chu Qingyan shook her head guiltily, but she was more curious about what Ethereal did. How did he become a different person? Tell me and I'll help you analyze it. Cheng Yanluo was furious when she heard that. I don't know who said something to him, but he suddenly became obsessed. He follows me around all day long. Other than going to the toilet, he's inseparable from me. He won't say anything when I ask him, and he won't leave even if I chase him away. I can't help but want to stab him with those needles. Chu Qingyan could not help but laugh when she heard that. She felt that Kong Ling was very good at carrying out his request, even though he said that he was unwilling. This shameless move was really well used. Seeing Cheng Yanluo's chest heaving up and down in anger, Chu Qingyan felt that she seemed more real now. Unlike before when she smiled, which gave people a sense of distance. She couldn't help but add fuel to the fire. Then why don't you give him a needle? Maybe he won't dare to do it if he's scared. Cheng Yanluo snorted. Do you think I can't bear to do it? If it weren't for the fact that I'm worried that something bad might happen to him, I would have suffered a great loss if he still didn't leave. Chu Qingyan nodded suspiciously. She took a bite of a pastry and said vaguely, "Then you can deal with him. It's useless to talk to me." Cheng Yanluo frowned. You really don't know anything? Chu Qingyan looked like an obedient child as she stood at attention and said sincerely, I dare to swear that I did not teach him to shamelessly follow you around. She had only taught him to be shameless when it came to doing things. Only then did Cheng Yanluo withdraw her suspicion. However, Morongju's behavior really gave her a headache. He was usually a modest gentleman, but now he did such a shameless thing. She didn't know what he had learned in the past 6 years. Sister Yanluo, what do you think about going to the Jiang Kingdom last time? Chu Qingyan mentioned it again with a smile. I don't think. Cheng Yanluo was about to reject it without thinking, but Chu Qingyan interrupted her in time. Sister Yanluo, since Ethereal has wronged you for so many years, haven't you thought of getting back at him? Chu Qingyan winked at her. Since we've already decided not to contact each other, why bother to pester him? Cheng Yanluo curled her lips and showed a touch of sarcasm. Since ancient times, love was left with regret, and this regret was endless. Chu Qingyan shrugged. Let's skip this topic first. By the way, didn't you say that Ethereal has been following you? Where is he? Chu Qingyan looked for him for a long time but didn't see him. Cheng Yanluo smiled. I just put croton in his soup. Chu Qingyan shuddered. This sister was so scary. Chapter 299. Chu Qingyan coughed lightly. If Yanluo knew that she was the mastermind behind Ethereal's scheme, wouldn't that be a problem that could be solved with a little croton? She suddenly shivered. She decided to seek warmth from the big ice cube. However, Chu Qingyan fell into deep thought as she watched Yanluo leave with light steps. Ethereal wasn't someone who would be easily drugged, and Yanluo wasn't someone who liked to use underhanded means to bully others. In that case, the two of them were actually just. Chu Qingyan stood up and brushed off the crumbs on her clothes. She leisurely said to Xining, Do you know what it means when one is willing to hit and the other is willing to be hit? No, I don't. Xining looked eager to learn. Chu Qingyan felt that it was better not to lead a child astray, so she patted Xining's head. You're still young. Xining looked like she was withering in the cold wind. Master, aren't you and this servant about the same age? In the forest, Higashio Motetsu was nestled in a tree, looking up at the sparse stars in the sky. He held a leaf in his hand and put it to his lips, softly playing it. His voice was like the cool breeze and the cold moon, drifting in the air, quiet and mellow. He played this tune for a long time until the moon was hanging in the sky. Only then did he move the leaf away from his lips and play with it in his hand. Young master, it's been a long time since I've heard you play this leaf. It's still so pleasant to the ear. It can be said that it will linger in the ears for 3 days without stopping. 3 days without the taste of meat. Xuanqi Zimo walked out from a corner and praised unceasingly. Higashio Motetsu glanced at him and said indifferently, "Speak human language." "Young master, your demonic sound has successfully made others retreat." Xuanqi Zimo laughed bitterly. Higashio Motetsu snorted coldly. These brats don't even know music, yet they dare to despise this young master. Xuanqi Zimo pretended not to understand. "All right, let's get down to business," Higashio Motetsu said faintly. Only then did Xuanqi Zimo get down to business. "This subordinate has made some inquiries. Miss Chu is already safe and sound. Young master need not worry." "Did I say I was worried about her?" Dongting Wangyu let out a sigh of relief when she heard that Su Qingseng was fine. However, she felt embarrassed and said coldly, "I understand. You're not worried about Miss Chu at all." But as soon as he finished speaking, his master rolled his eyes at him. Xuanqi Zimo felt that he couldn't tell the truth or lie. Why was it so difficult to be a subordinate these days? "Have you heard anything else?" Higashio Motetsu leisurely leaned against the tree trunk with a relaxed expression. He was no longer as impatient as before. "Yes, the King of England and the others are leaving for the Jiang Kingdom tomorrow. Should we follow them?" Xuanqi Zimo asked. "Of course, why wouldn't we? We haven't gotten the item yet. Since it's not in the prince's estate, it must be with him or hidden by him." Higashio Motetsu sat up and took out the folding fan at his waist. He opened it with a snap and waved it leisurely. Xuanqi Zimo hesitated. "Master, this subordinate has something to ask, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate. If you don't know, don't ask." Higashio Motetsu looked at him disdainfully. When did he become so wishy-washy? Xuanqi Zimo choked. Under normal circumstances, shouldn't he be asking questions? It seemed that he still couldn't use common sense to judge his master. Seeing his subordinate's conflicted expression, Higashio Motetsu couldn't stand it any longer. He generously said, "All right, you may ask." Only then did Xuanqi Zimo heave a sigh of relief. He raised his head and asked sincerely, "Young master, when we were in the forest, you originally planned to hold Miss Chu hostage and force the King of England to hand over the item. But in the end, you just watched Miss Chu leave. A few days ago, Miss Chu fainted from a high fever. That was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why didn't you use that opportunity to force the King of England to hand over the item? This subordinate doesn't understand. Why did you let go of those opportunities again and again?" Higashio Motetsu was slightly stunned by his subordinate's words. He even forgot to wave the folding fan in his hand. Then, when he felt his subordinate's puzzled gaze, he closed the fan and said with a serious expression, "That's because this young master doesn't like to use this method to get things. Do you understand? But you've done it many times in the past." Xuanqi Zimo muttered softly. But how could his words escape his young master's ears? "Xian. Mo." When his young master called out his name in such a tone, he knew that he had said something he shouldn't have again. This subordinate still has things to do. "I'll take my leave first." He ran away like a wisp of smoke. But what was that sharp weapon that tore through the air right after him? Xuanqi Zimo immediately decided to lie down on the ground. A leaf brushed past his face and nailed itself to the trunk of a tree. Then, a strand of black hair floated in front of him. Heavens, I finally dodged it. Even after the surroundings returned to silence, Higashio Motetsu's subordinate's question still echoed in his ears. Why? Honestly speaking, he didn't know either. Perhaps he really didn't want to use this method on a little girl. Moreover, the road ahead was long. He might as well enjoy it while he searched. In any case, he wasn't in a hurry. He waved the peach blossom fan. In a temple in Sichuan, a clean and pure white figure had his back to the door. He held a small wooden stick in his hand and was lightly beating a wooden fish. One of his hands was wearing Buddhist prayer beads, and his palm was facing the side. He closed his eyes and calmly chanted. If one listened carefully, they would be able to tell that he was chanting the Great Compassion Mantra. The candlelight flickered, but it didn't affect him at all. He continued to chant the mantra peacefully. Uncle Master, the Emperor of Jiang Country has sent a letter inviting you to Jiang Country. This is the invitation. The novice monk handed the invitation to him. Hearing this, Su Jian chanted, Ba. Then he put down the small wooden stick in his hand and slowly stood up. He took the invitation, opened it and closed it. This invitation came at the right time. A faint smile appeared in Su Jian's emotionless eyes. He walked out of the hall and looked up at the night sky. A few days ago he observed the stars at night and found that the star beside the sun of heaven was gradually dimming. It was almost invisible, but recently, that star seemed to have a tendency to light up again. It was just that compared to before, it was still much dimmer. He had already guessed what was going on. Wu Ming, help Uncle Master prepare the things for the trip. He turned and smiled at the novice monk. The novice monk asked curiously, How long will Uncle Master be gone? Uncle Master doesn't know either. Su Jian put his palms together and looked up at the star in the sky again. Ever since he met the benefactress, many things had begun to change. If he guessed correctly, the star should have fallen. However, someone had woken it up, and it had regained its light. He hoped that all of this wouldn't be the beginning of a massacre. Su Jian closed his eyes and chanted in a low voice, Ba. My Buddha is merciful. Namo hi luo na, de luo yi namo aya polujia emperor, shuabo luo yi. Chapter 300. The next day. It was almost time to leave the medical center. Chu Qingyan originally wanted Mu Ling to send Xining and the others to a safe and hidden place and wait for them to return safely from the Jiang Kingdom before picking them up. Unfortunately, Master, this servant also wants to go with you. Xining followed behind her with a bundle in her arms, unable to be shaken off. Chu Qingyan facepalmed. Girl, we're not going to play. We have an important task to take care of. Then why can Jean Xian go with you? The little girl was jealous. Jean Xian, who had just recovered and was wiping his sword, felt that he was inexplicably implicated. Chu Qingyan pulled her hand and said earnestly, Jean Xian has martial arts. He can protect himself and protect me. What can you do? Xining pouted. Xining can accompany Master to pass the time when you're bored and take care of your basic necessities. You just have to worry about your own matters. This servant can take care of everything. Chu Qingyan shook her head and laughed. In the past, this girl was not so bold. After following her for so long, she dared to beat around the bush and argue with her. All right, I'll reluctantly agree. Xining was so happy that she spun around on the floor, making the people moving the luggage at the side unable to restrain their laughter. Qing-yi, LVE and the others were all arranged to a safe place by Chu Qingyan. Other than Chu Qingyan and her two servants, the rest were Xiao Su and Xiao Laiqi. Chu Qingyan was a little curious. Big Ice Cube, don't you have anyone to take care of you? Don't I still have you? Xiao Su crossed his arms and looked at the orderly and busy people, as if he was just casually replying. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Big Ice Cube was too good at making his own decisions. Master, this servant will take care of you, and you will take care of His Highness. Is it like what you said before? The big fish eats the small fish, and the small fish eats the shrimps? Xining asked innocently. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at the sky. That's enough. By the way, I haven't seen Gu Rong or Gu Yi in a long time. Chu Qingyan was a little late to realize that they were gone, but she couldn't remember when they disappeared. She was actually afraid of the two of them, but she didn't know why. After I sent you off, I sent them away, Xiao Su said indifferently. Why? Is it because they were arranged by your mother? Chu Qingyan thought of this reason. She would never forget that because of Empress Liang, these two had always liked her. Xiao Su nodded. I always feel uneasy with my mother's people by my side. It's better to let them go. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan understood. For example, this time, they were going to the Jiang Kingdom. If Gu Rong and Gu Yi were still there, they would definitely leak the news. The more people knew, the more dangerous it would be. Chu Qingyan looked at the back of the person who was facing her, and her heart was filled with emotions. In order to reassure her mother, he tolerated being watched. This feeling was really uncomfortable. Only the big ice cube could be so magnanimous and tolerant. They wandered around the courtyard for half an hour. They could set off in another hour, but she didn't see Yan Luo when she woke up early in the morning. She felt strange, and Ethereal, who was beside her, gave her an illusion that he was unhappy. "Where's your Yan Luo?" Chu Qingyan bumped his arm. Ethereal shook his head. "Did the battle succeed?" Chu Qingyan didn't give up and asked again. He shook his head again. Chu Qingyan sighed faintly. It seemed that Ethereal had failed. She turned her head and asked Xiao. After learning that Yan Luo was in her room, Chu Qingyan went to her room alone. Chu Qingyan walked to the door and was about to knock, but she was shocked when she saw the room was wide open. "Sister Yan Luo, what happened here? Were you robbed?" Chu Qingyan carefully avoided the bottles and jars that were strewn all over the floor before walking in. Then, she saw a person moving around with her back, facing her among the pile of junk. "I'm packing." Yan Luo was focused on rummaging through the things and casually replied, "Are you sure you're packing and not destroying things?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have never imagined that a girl's room could be so messy. When she heard this, Yan Luo raised her head and looked at her with an ungrateful expression. "Little girl, if it weren't for you, why would I be rummaging through things? I'm a clean freak." "Because of me?" Chu Qingyan felt that she had been given such a title out of the blue. She was extremely shocked. "Nonsense. Do you know how many snakes, insects, rats, and ants there are on the way to the Jiang Kingdom? If you don't take precautions, the journey will be very difficult." Yan Luo tossed the medicine bottle in her hand. "Fortunately, I made a lot of ointment in my spare time. It will come in handy this time." When Chu Qingyan understood her words, she was instantly overjoyed. She opened her arms and was about to pounce on her. "Sister Yan Luo, you agree to go with us? That's great." Yan Luo didn't push her away. Instead, she smiled and said, "Didn't you say that if you hate someone, the best way is to stay by his side and torture him? After so many years, I still can't forget the pain he caused me. Why should he be free and unfettered outside? Once I'm done torturing him, I'll kick him away and take revenge for all these years." Chu Qingyan's hands couldn't help but tremble. When did she say such things? Did she have selective amnesia? She retracted her hands and rubbed her nose. "Ethereal, you have to take care of yourself on this journey." "All right, I've finished packing. Little girl, prepare a carriage for me. It has to be spacious, comfortable, and bright. I know you can do it. Thank you in advance." Yan Luo flung the bundle over her shoulders and waved at her. Chu Qingyan looked at the waving claw in front of her, and had an impulse to chop it off. However, when she saw the bright smile on her face, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. She suddenly had a feeling that this trip would leave her with an unforgettable memory. She followed the person who was humming in front of her and returned to the courtyard happily. The preparations were almost done, and it was time to set off. When Ethereal saw Yan Luo carrying a bundle, she was undoubtedly stunned. "What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll gouge your eyeballs out." Yan Luo coughed softly and raised her voice to hide the uneasiness in her heart. I didn't expect that you would really come with us to the Jiang Kingdom. Even someone who is usually eloquent would stutter one day. I'm not doing this for you." After saying that, she waved her finger at Chu Qingyan. "Double the reward." Chu Qingyan facepalmed. She really knew how to do business. At this moment, Turin, who had gone to scout ahead, returned. However, there was an indescribably strange expression on his face. "Master, young princess, look who's here." Turin moved aside and the person behind him pounced on him. "Long time no see. Father is here." Chapter 301. Father? Chu Qingyan looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. He was dressed in shabby clothes and had a head full of withered leaves. He was the father she had been thinking about day and night. After the shock, she couldn't help but go forward to hug him. However, when she opened her arms, The man passed by her and strode to the person beside her. What's going on? She heard. Son-in-law, Daddy is here. Did you miss Daddy? Chu Qingyan turned around and held her forehead. Why did she have the illusion that she wasn't her biological father? The corner of Xiao Su's mouth twitched as he looked at his father-in-law who was running towards him. Master Chu. Mr. Chu smiled and nodded to him. Then he turned around and patted his daughter's head. Kai, Daddy is here. Chu Qingyan also twitched her mouth. Was the son-in-law first and the daughter second? However, when Mr. Chu looked back at the man in front of him, his smile suddenly disappeared. Son-in-law, why is your face so pale? Did Kai not take good care of you? Chu Qingyan covered her eyes. Daddy, how could you say that? Not wanting her father to continue talking nonsense, Chu Qingyan took his hand and asked in surprise. Daddy, why are you here? Where's Mom? Your mom? She can't walk anymore. She's resting for a while. I think she'll be here soon. Mr. Chu scratched his head and looked out of the door. Speak of the devil. At this time Mrs. Chu, who was riding in with Xiao Lai, looked around the crowd. When she saw her daughter, her eyes reddened. Kai. Mom. When Chu Qingyan saw her, her eyes also reddened. She immediately ran up to her. After the mother and daughter hugged each other, Chu Qingyan asked, Mom, why are you and Dad here? Didn't we agree to let you wait for us in the capital? When Mrs. Chu heard this, she felt a little helpless. It's all because of your father. He kept making a fuss about coming to look for you. Ever since you left, he's been nagging at me. A month ago, he suddenly made a fuss. Since he had nothing to do, he suggested that we bring him out for a walk. I see. Chu Qingyan nodded. Then how did you find this place? Some time ago. The news that the King of England punished the corrupt officials spread widely. We followed the news all the way here. When we arrived at Wuxia County, we met the Turan. Mrs. Chu felt sad when she recalled the journey, but the result was good. Chu Qingyan could feel the hardships and tribulations her mother had experienced in those few words. Master Chu, how did you end up like this? Xining was a little surprised. It's all because she wanted to climb the tree and look into the distance, but she fell down instead, Mrs. Chu said with a smile. Everyone pursed their lips and chuckled. Due to the arrival of Mr. and Mrs. Chu, the departure time was postponed until the afternoon. Sha Feng instructed the servants to prepare hot water for the two of them to freshen up. At this moment, Chu Qingyan and the others were waiting in the main hall. Sister Yanluo, I came to the clinic because I wanted to trouble you to take a look at my father. 10 years ago, he was injured on the battlefield and was sent back. He ended up in this state. After so many years, no one has been able to cure him. Chu Qingyan sighed softly before she spoke to Cheng Yanluo. Cheng Yanluo put down her teacup. When she saw Mr. Chu earlier, she felt that something was wrong. Now that Chu Qingyan mentioned it, she nodded. Maybe he was hit by a heavy object, which caused the blood flow in his head to be blocked. I'll take a look at him later. Thank you, Sister Yanluo. Chu Qingyan's eyes were slightly red. She and her mother had been worried about her father's illness for many years. They had almost given up hope. Previously, they had received the information provided by Ethereal, but it had brushed past her. She had thought that it would take a while longer, but her parents had unexpectedly arrived. Chu Qingyan felt that sometimes, a freak combination of factors could be unexpected and surprising. At this moment, Mr. Chu strode out, looking refreshed. Mrs. Chu followed closely behind him with a smile. Mother, this is Cheng Yanluo, Dr. Cheng. She's the doctor that I told you about. Let her take a look at my father later. Chu Qingyan introduced her to her mother. Then she turned around and introduced her to Cheng Yanluo. Sister Yanluo, this is my mother. Your mother is so young. She's so beautiful. I couldn't tell that she had a daughter as old as you. Cheng Yanluo wasn't stingy with her compliments. She said politely to Mrs. Chu, Hello, Aunt Chu. You can just call me Yanluo. Of course. My Danyang used to be the most beautiful woman in the capital city, Mr. Chu said proudly. Mrs. Chu was embarrassed by the compliment. She glared at her husband and smiled. Yanluo, I'll leave my husband in your care. You're welcome, Cheng Yanluo replied. Chu Qingyan called her father, who was nestled next to the ice cube over. However, her father complained. Kai, I haven't finished telling my son-in-law about the first day. I actually saw a beetle as big as a rock. Mrs. Chu couldn't help but say, Yuan, how many times have I told you? That was a rock. Oh. Mr. Chu nodded. Then he suddenly became excited. Kai, I also saw a dog as big as a bear. A dog as big as a pig. Chu Qingyan was puzzled. Mrs. Chu put her hand to her forehead. It was a black bear. He ran into its den. Fortunately, the black bear was hibernating, so it didn't chase after him. Chu Qingyan's lips twitched. She felt extremely lucky to see her father safe and sound at this moment. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo had already started to take Mr. Chu's pulse. Everyone in the room was looking at the two of them with rapt attention. Mr. Chu scratched his head and said to his daughter, Kai, why are they all looking at me? Is it because I'm very handsome today? She had accidentally blurted out the words handsome and handsome in the past. However, it was obvious that her father was a fast learner. He often mentioned it now. Yes, you're very handsome. Chu Qingyan agreed with a blatant lie. However, to be honest, her father was indeed very handsome. She heard that he was one of the top 10 handsome young men in the capital city. Mr. Chu turned to ask Mrs. Chu the same question in high spirits. After receiving Mrs. Chu's affirmation, he turned to ask his son-in-law. Xiao Su didn't want to pay attention to him at first. However, in order to make him listen to him obediently, he nodded subtly. Mr. Chu was even more arrogant now. Cheng Yanluo, who was frowning while taking Mr. Chu's pulse, gave up. She stood up and put her hand into Mr. Chu's hair. She pinched his head and looked around. Finally, she relaxed her brows and withdrew her hand as if she had found the cause. How is it? What's the cause? Can it be cured? Chu Qingyan asked anxiously. Although Mr. Chu often teased them, Huoling, Turin, and the others also looked nervous. Chapter 302. Cheng Yanluo met everyone's anxious gazes and smiled. I've already found the cause of his illness. You don't have to worry. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But, Cheng Yanluo hesitated for a moment, but succeeded in tugging at everyone's heartstrings. The treatment process is very complicated and will take at least half a year. Now that we're going to Jiang Kingdom, I'm afraid I won't be able to treat Uncle Chu immediately. Chu Qingyan frowned when she heard this. This was indeed a problem. At this moment, Father Chu stood up and said righteously, Go ahead if you have urgent matters to attend to. Don't worry about me. I've been sick for 10 years anyway, so I don't need more time. The moment he said that, Chu Qingyan was touched by her father's words. Daddy. But what came next? That's why you should bring me along. Mr. Chu grinned. Father's words were undoubtedly a huge bomb thrown at Chu Qingyan. Father, we're not going to play. You know that we have urgent matters to attend to. Chu Qingyan hurriedly pulled him aside and explained. I know. Father Chu nodded understandingly. Kai, father can help. You don't know, but I was the one who chased away that bear dog in the cave. Father, it was a black bear. Chu Qingyan couldn't be bothered to correct him, but before she could say anything else, her father had already skipped back to his son-in-law's side. Father Chu circled around his son-in-law. Kai has already agreed to let father go. You won't dislike father, right? Father promises that he won't disturb you. Just eat whatever you like. Father, I don't have a big appetite, but don't forget to have a drumstick for lunch and some snacks for dinner. Chu Qingyan blushed with shame. When did she agree? Xiao Su glanced at her, then instructed Mu Ling, prepare another carriage. Father Chu cheered. Chu Qingyan was stunned, and Huoling's jaws dropped. Big ice cube this. Chu Qingyan frowned, unable to understand his decision. Xiao Su patted her hand and urged, Let's get ready to go. Cheng Yanluo stroked her chin and said, That's good too. I'll check on Uncle Chu along the way. We'll probably stay for a while in the Jiang Kingdom. We can start the treatment then. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she felt that this was a good idea. Just as Chu Qingyan was about to chase after him, she heard Cheng Yanluo whispering to her when she passed by. Little girl, I didn't know that your big ice cube was so fond of me. Chu Qingyan paused and turned back to look at her in confusion. She didn't know what Yanluo was trying to say. Cheng Yanluo glanced at her and shrugged. Then, she leisurely walked towards her carriage. Chu Qingyan saw that she didn't answer, and she couldn't figure it out herself, so she gave up and went straight to the carriage. She jumped onto the carriage and lifted the curtains. When she saw the people inside, she felt that she hadn't felt this way for a long time. How long had it been since she and Big Ice Cube rode in the same carriage? Big Ice Cube, your carriage is still the most spacious. She leaned on the couch as if she had no bones, occupying the entire couch. Xiao glanced at her. You should stand properly, and you should sit properly. Look at yourself. What a disgrace. It had been a long time since they rode in the same carriage, and he started to nag and preach. This is called lying properly. What can you say when I'm right? Xiao retracted his gaze from her and said faintly, this prince will count to 3. If you don't listen, you'll ride in the same carriage as your father. The moment he said that, Chu Qingyan shuddered. 1. She didn't believe that Big Ice Cube would really do that to her. 2. Forget it. A wise man submits to circumstances. Before the third count came out, she had already obediently sat down and showed Xiao her perfect 8 teeth. Xiao finally focused his attention on the book. The parenting manual mentioned that children of this age were still growing. If they didn't pay attention to their posture, it would affect their appearance when they grew up. He didn't want the little one he had raised to lose out to others. This carriage was a new type of carriage that Mu Ling had improved based on her previous blueprint. Although it didn't look any different from the carriages on the market, the inside was filled with the best. It was said that there were many mechanisms installed. Once activated, not only could it defend itself, it could also kill enemies. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but admit that Mu Ling was indeed a genius in this field. Big Ice Cube, how did you cultivate their different abilities in the past? After touching here and there, she had already lost interest. However, she was extremely curious about the origins of these 6 spirits. Everyone has their own specialties. This king only made reasonable training arrangements based on their specialties. Once they've learned enough, they can lead a region on their own. Xiao fingers paused as he flipped through the pages. He recalled that when these people were brought to him, they were only 7 or 8 years old. Now they were all grown up and could take charge of a region on their own. Time flew by and so many years had passed. Chu Qingyan saw that he was in a daze and guessed that he must be thinking about the past. She asked, Mu Ling is good at designing things, Water Spirit is good at digging for information, Fire Spirit is good at fighting, Turin is good at attacking, Ethereal is good at healing, and there's still Jinling? What is he good at? Seeing that the little one's curiosity was aroused, Xiao curled his lips. If there's a chance you will meet him. TSK still keeping me in suspense. Chu Qingyan was a little annoyed. However, it was fun to look forward to it. She was very curious about how Jinling looked like. Of the 5 spirits beside her, other than Water Spirit, she had not seen them before. Their appearances were not bad. She was looking forward to seeing Jinling's appearance. There were only the 2 of them in the carriage, and he did not speak. Chu Qingyan could not keep her cool, and could only take the initiative. She moved in front of him and took the book from his hand. What do you want to do now? Ethereal said that her body had not fully recovered, so she should rest more. He originally thought that if he ignored her, she would be sleepy and go to rest. However, he did not expect her to be so energetic. When his gaze moved from the book to her, Chu Qingyan asked seriously and curiously, I have a question that I don't understand. Why did you agree to go to Jiang country with my parents? You know that time is very precious to you. In order to accommodate my parents, you will definitely delay a lot of your journey. This prince knows what to do. You don't have to worry about it. Xiao still avoided her topic. Chu Qingyan was a little depressed. She did not despise her parents for being a burden. She just felt that his decision this time was a little willful. Go to sleep. Xiao patted her head. It will take 4 hours before we reach the town. Chu Qingyan saw that she could not get anything out of him, so she simply gave up. Since it had already happened, let it be. She leaned against his knee, found a comfortable position, and started to take an afternoon nap. Xiao Su stroked her long hair, his gaze softening. Little one, after being alone for so long, she wanted to feel what kinship was like. She did not know whether she would live or die after these 3 months, so she did not want to leave any regrets. Chapter 303. What? The King of England is missing? Empress Liang stood up from her chair in shock. Luo Yin immediately stepped forward to appease her. Nyang Nyang, don't be anxious. It's more important to clarify the situation first. His Highness has weathered all these years, so he should be fine. Empress Liang didn't relax because of Luo Yin's words. She turned to look at Gu Rong, who was kneeling on the ground, and asked coldly, "What exactly is going on? Tell this consort the truth." Gu Rong didn't dare delay, and immediately reported everything that had happened during this period of time. Ever since Wuxia County, our troops have been ambushed and hunted down by bandits. During this time, this subordinate and Gu Yi wrote several letters to the capital, but for some reason they couldn't be found. Then Lord discovered our secret movements and sent us away. By the time we returned to our original location, the ground was littered with the corpses of Xiao Lai's cavalry, but Lord's whereabouts were unknown. Our men searched for a long time, but they couldn't find any trace of Lord. Without receiving orders from Her Highness the Empress, this subordinate was worried and returned to the capital alone to report. Gu Yi stayed behind to continue the search. Empress Liang's expression was cold. This consort hasn't received any letters from you these past few days. Gu Rong was shocked. Could it be that you were intercepted along the way? That's the only possibility. Empress Liang's fingers tightly gripped the armrest. She was so angry that veins were popping out on her face. I'm afraid that only that bitch Fu Yu is behind this. Then Nyang Nyang, what should we do? Should we report this matter to His Majesty? Luo Yin asked worriedly. Empress Liang took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. She slowly opened her eyes, which were filled with fire. There's no need to tell His Majesty. Gu Rong, tell my father to find Sewer no matter what. If he's alive, this consort wants to see him. If he's dead, this consort wants to see his corpse. Yes. Gu Rong turned to leave. Wait. Empress Liang suddenly spoke. Does your highness have any other orders? Gu Rongfu knelt down again. Tell my father to keep this news a secret. If it spreads like wildfire and the entire capital knows about it, then our Liang family will be finished, Empress Liang said sternly. Understood. After Gu Rong left, the anger in her heart burst out. Empress Liang waved her hand fiercely, and the tea set and vase on the table fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Nyang Nyang, please calm down. Luo Yin stepped forward to support her, while the other palace servants knelt down in fright. This consort hates Ah, really hates Ah. Empress Liang pushed Luo Yin away and fell back into her chair. His Majesty should have known about such a big matter long ago. But this consort only received the news now. What does this mean? What does it mean? Empress Liang said angrily. Luo Yin comforted her. Perhaps His Majesty was afraid that you would be worried. So he hid this matter for now and told you when he found news of His Highness. Haha. Empress Liang laughed coldly. Luo Yin, you actually believe this? He's probably looking forward to squeezing the two of us out of our current positions. She had been married to His Majesty for over 20 years, so she was very clear about his temperament. His favorite thing was to set a trap, then watch as his prey fell into it. Afterwards, he would devour them without them even realizing it. By the time they realized, it was already too late. Luo Yin's expression was bitter. Nyang Nyang, the most important thing right now is to find His Highness. That's right. If anything happens to Sewer, the entire Liang family will be finished. Empress Liang closed her eyes, then ordered, send someone to pay close attention to that bitch Fu Yue. If there's any movement, immediately report to this consort. Yes. After Luo Yin agreed, she advised again. Nyang Nyang, don't worry. His Highness is blessed by the heavens. Didn't Gu Rong say that she didn't find Hualing and the others? That means that they're with His Highness. His Highness has been outside for so many years and has gone through so many disasters. It's likely that he'll be able to turn danger into safety this time. On the other hand, if your body is damaged from anger, what will you do? Empress Liang waved her hand. You don't need to comfort this consort. This consort sees it clearer than anyone else. Luoyin wanted to say something else, but was stopped by a look from Empress Liang. Empress Liang stood up, her eyes red and filled with hostility. If anything happens to Su'er this time, then this consort will drag that bitch Fu Yue and her son to the grave, even if this consort has to sacrifice everything in the Liang family. Once she lost Su'er, her position in the Eastern Palace would change hands. The position of Crown Prince would be Xiao Ran, and the Liang family's decades of foundation would be destroyed overnight. She definitely wouldn't allow this to happen. Luoyin, this consort wants to see His Majesty. Her slightly narrowed eyes abruptly opened. She disdained to compromise, but for the Liang family, for Su'er, she had to take a gamble. Although she didn't understand why her master suddenly changed her mind, Luoyin immediately went to prepare. Inside the imperial garden, Sichuan Emperor sat in the cloud-gazing pavilion with his eyes closed, listening to a performer playing the guzheng. Your Majesty, Her Highness the Empress requests an audience. Eunuch Xiao stepped forward to report. The hand that was lightly tapping on the table paused. Then Sichuan Emperor slowly opened his eyes. A slightly complicated expression flashed through his already cloudy eyes. Has anyone seen the Empress today? Hearing this, Eunuch Xiao had another guard step forward. It was the petty officer in charge of entering and exiting the palace gates. The petty officer said, Your Majesty, an hour ago, a guard holding Her Highness the Empress token entered Chaoyang Palace. He has already left the palace. A trace of understanding appeared on Sichuan Emperor's face. He ordered, Summon the Empress. Yes. Eunuch Xiao turned and announced loudly, Summon Her Highness the Empress for an audience. A moment later, a beautiful figure slowly walked over. This consort greets Your Majesty. May Your Majesty be in good health. Before Emperor Liang arrived, she had specially dressed herself. At this moment, she slightly lowered her head, revealing a white jade neck. Her swaying long skirt covered the ground, and the aqua blue color was even more gentle, wiping away her usual unyielding nature. The double outline of the crescent moon rubbed in a bit of tenderness. Her lips were covered with rouge, full of words, revealing her white teeth. Sweeping away her previous unyielding nature, she was now tender and affectionate, with a different style. Beloved consort, please rise. Accustomed to her coldness for many years, seeing her today, the Sichuan Emperor seemed to see her 20 years ago. When they first met on the river, she looked back and smiled, unable to restrain her joy. Thank you, Your Majesty. Empress Liang obediently got up and walked to the table. She poured a cup of wine for Sichuan Emperor and said with a smile, Your Majesty is in such a refined mood today. How can you enjoy the zither without pastries? Empress Liang finished speaking and raised her hand. Luo Yun, who was behind her, brought a delicate rose cake and placed it on the table. The Empress is considerate. Sichuan Emperor reached out and patted her soft hand. His woman was willing to put down her status to please him. It was enough to satisfy a man's chauvinistic mentality. What is Your Majesty saying? This is what this consort ought to do. Empress Liang smiled softly. Seeing the light that flashed through Sichuan Emperor's eyes, she knew that he was moved. Your Majesty tonight. Your Majesty, this consort came late. It turns out that Sister Empress is also here. A voice interrupted Empress Liang's words. Chapter 304. These words separated Empress Liang from the Sichuan Emperor. Imperial concubine Moon leisurely walked over. She wore a light yellow dress that trailed behind her. With every step she took, her dress swayed, making it seem as if flowers were blooming around her feet. Her makeup was elegant and refined, contrasting with the cold and withered leaves outside. Looking at her was like seeing tree branches sprouting in spring, making one feel happy. Empress Liang narrowed her eyes. She was very displeased to see this Cheng Yaojin suddenly appear out of nowhere. But at this time, she had to force a smile in response. So it's consort you Mimi. It's so cold and Mimi's body is thin and weak. It's best if you don't come out in the wind. Many thanks for big sister Empress concern. Mimi hasn't reached the point where I can be blown away by the wind. But big sister, don't you feel cold in your clothes today? Consort Yu covered her mouth with a handkerchief and smiled gently. Her tone was 70% concerned and 30% worried. Empress Liang's expression changed. Her clothes were indeed a bit thin, but in order to attract His Majesty's attention, she was willing to risk it all and couldn't care less. However, Consort Yu's insinuations made Sichuan Emperor frown slightly. He suddenly felt that the Empress' breathtaking aura lessened a bit. He granted the two a seat. Empress Liang and Consort Yu sat on the left and right of the Empress Dowager. At this time, Sichuan Emperor rubbed Consort Yu's hand and suddenly reprimanded. How do you servants serve people? Don't you see that your master's hands are so cold? Hurry and bring up the hand warmer. The palace maid serving Imperial concubine Yu immediately went to fetch a hand stove. Seeing this, Imperial concubine Yu cast a provocative look at Empress Liang, then said tenderly to the Wuxian Emperor, Your Majesty, there's no need. Don't you want to go sit in Qinqia's palace later? It's the same if you go back and warm my hands. Empress Liang was originally annoyed by Consort Yu's provocation, but hearing her words, it was obvious that His Majesty was going to sleep in her palace tonight. Her heart instantly chilled. It'll take some time to walk from here to your palace. Take care of yourself first. Sichuan Emperor said considerately. At this time, the hand warmer prepared by the palace servants arrived. Sichuan Emperor stood up. There's no need to wait. Let's go to your palace now. Imperial concubine Moon's face was filled with joy, but when she saw Empress Liang, she hesitated for a moment. Then she smiled and said, Big sister Empress, His Majesty is going to little sister's palace to admire the plum blossoms. Do you want to come along? Empress Liang looked at this hypocritical Consort Yu and felt angry, but she couldn't show it. She said with a smile, It's such a beautiful day. Big sister won't disturb His Majesty and younger sister from admiring the plum blossoms. Your Majesty, this consort will take her leave. That's good. Go back early and warm up. Don't catch a cold. Sichuan Emperor said with concern, but his gaze quickly shifted to Consort Yu. Empress Liang lowered her head and acknowledged. The three of them left Cloud Viewing Pavilion together, but in opposite directions. After walking a few steps, Empress Liang faintly heard a conversation behind her. Your Majesty, does Big Sister Empress still dislike this consort? This consort has already tried her best to please her. But why does she still reject this consort? Consort Yu spoke with grievance, like a young girl acting coquettishly to her lover. You've already done very well. Sichuan Emperor replied with a smile. Then a burst of lovey-dovey laughter came from afar. Empress Liang felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. She held onto the railing with one hand. The icy cold touched her fingertips, but she didn't feel it at all. She and Consort Yu had fought for almost half of their lives, but she always lost because she didn't know how to scheme enough. She was too headstrong and always lost too miserably. Nyang nyang. Luoyan revealed a worried expression. Empress Liang stood up straight and regained her usual grace and elegance. No matter when, she had to shine brilliantly and not be easily trampled on. She could only place her hopes on Father for Sewer's matter. She hoped that he would be able to make it in time. Help me back to the palace. Yes. Her thin figure shivered slightly in the cold wind, but it couldn't change her straight back. Everything that had happened in the past had become a touch of sadness in the cold wind. Who was the romantic? It was all for the love of the wind and the moon. Taking advantage of this helpless day, sad day, and lonely time to test the stupidity. In the cold wind, Chu Qingyan and the others disguised themselves as peddlers and settled down in a town. Ethereal had disguised Xiao Su's appearance as an ordinary person. If Chu Qingyan didn't recognize that pair of eyes, she would have thought that it was someone else. Ethereal, you've turned His Highness into a passerby. Do you want to do the same for me? Chu Qingyan asked excitedly. She also wanted to experience the taste of disguising herself. Xiao Su glanced at her. No need. You look very safe. Look very safe? Chu Qingyan felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over her head. Big ice cube, what do you mean? Chu Qingyan tugged at his sleeve. vowing that he would give her an explanation. What I mean, Xiao Su said as he pried her hand away. Pulling and pulling in public, where are your manners? Big Ice Cube, you're so pedantic. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry but had no tears. Since when did the Ice Cube's words become so sharp? Seeing that her mistress had entered the shop first, Ethereal smiled and said to her, His Highness used to be a man of few words. Once he's willing to take the initiative to talk to someone, it means that he's in a good mood. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Even if he was in a good mood, there was no need to build it on other people's pain. Also, why did Ethereal's tone give her the feeling that she was taking pleasure in other people's misfortune? Cheng Yanlua walked over and patted her on the shoulder. I couldn't tell. Your Ice Cube is usually quiet, but when he does, it's shocking. With that, Cheng Yanlua walked forward. Ethereal wanted to take her bundle, but she dodged and left with a cold snort. Mr. Chu, who had caught up with them, placed the toy in Ethereal's hand before she could retract it. Ignoring Ethereal's twitching eyes, he nagged, This is something Blockhead made for me on the way here. Don't touch it. Thanks for your hard work, Hollow. With that, he entered the shop with Mrs. Chu. Ethereal looked at the messy bundle in her hand, and realized in hindsight. What the hell was Hollow? Chu Qingyan's eyes curved. This was karma. Thanks for your hard work, Hollow. Chu Qingyan strode into the inn. During dinner, Chu Qingyan's group did not attract much attention from the others. That was because they were more or less disguised, and they looked like ordinary merchants. Chu Qingyan waited impatiently for the food to be served. She had slept in the carriage for the whole afternoon. When she woke up, she was already hungry. Didn't they say that exercise would make one hungry faster? Why did sleeping consume so much energy? Just then, a sumptuous spread of dishes arrived. Chu Qingyan grabbed her chopsticks and was about to pick up the braised pork when a pair of chopsticks stopped her midway. The pair of chopsticks then moved to the stir-fried shredded carrots on the side. Big Ice Cube, I don't want that. I want to eat meat. Chu Qingyan frowned. Eat more carrots. They'll help you grow taller. Xiao Su saw her withdraw her chopsticks and put some carrots into her bowl. My height. Before Chu Qingyan could retort, Xiao Su had already cut her off. When I was your age, I was already as tall as Miss Cheng. What the hell? How could a boy and a girl be compared in terms of height? Chu Qingyan was speechless. Cheng Yanluo, who was chewing on a pig's trotter, widened her eyes. How did a bystander like her get implicated? Chapter 305. Ever since that dinner, there were carrots in every meal. No matter how much Chu Qingyan protested, it was all to no avail. She had no choice but to swallow the vegetables that she didn't like to eat but were essential for growing up. She felt that it was too painful for a person to experience growth twice in their life. They traveled for 3 days and 3 nights in a row, and found an inn to stay before dark. Perhaps it was because they were successfully modified, but they weren't attacked along the way. It could be said that there were no surprises or dangers. After dinner, Chu Qingyan followed Xiao Su into his room. What's the matter? Along the way, he saw that she looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't ask her, thinking that she would tell him sooner or later, but she didn't say anything until after dinner. Xiao Su sat down on the chair and looked up at her. Chu Qingyan sat down in front of him and rested her chin on her hands. She looked troubled. Big Ice Block, we've already reached the border of Sichuan. After crossing the border and passing through Junlan, we'll reach Jiang. Xiao Su answered casually. I've asked the Earth Spirit. He said that if we take a shortcut, we can go from the Junlan state to the Jiang state very quickly. It'll take at least half a month. I'm thinking about how we should get the ice crystal flower. I have no idea now. She rubbed her head, very distressed. So this little fellow was troubled about this matter. Xiao Su didn't look as troubled as her. He said calmly, let nature take its course. You don't have to think too much. But there's still no news of the love grass. I can't calm down. She leaned on the table and buried her head between her elbows. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt her head sink. She looked up from her arms and saw Big Ice Block gently stroking her head. She was a little touched. Big Ice Block, Don't think too much at such a young age. If the things in your head are too heavy, you won't be able to grow tall. He retracted his hand and looked at her worriedly. What did this have to do with height? Big ice block, you're adding insult to injury again. Thus, Chu Qingyan entered the room with a heart full of bitterness, and then left the room with a body full of displeasure. Xiao Su looked at the door that was slammed shut. His lips curled slightly as he tapped his fingers on the table. After a moment he said, "Come in." Huoling and Turin answered and opened the door. "Greetings, master." "Well, what happened recently?" Xiao Su leaned against the back of the chair with a lazy expression. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. Huoling said, "Master, Gu Rong has returned to the capital. After the Empress received the news of your disappearance, she sent a message to the Liang family to find you at all costs. They should have already set off by now. Aside from the local officials that His Majesty has sent to search for you, there are at least 3 other forces looking for you. One of them is the Moon Palace. But last time, the young princess ordered this subordinate to shift the attention of the local officials to those bandits and successfully held them back. That's why our trip this time was more daunting than dangerous. He already knew about the little fellow's previous orders. It was indeed a good move to return an eye for an eye. Continue to hide your whereabouts. Don't let anyone find out, whether it's those assassins, the Imperial Palace, or the Liang family." Xiao Su said calmly. "Master, don't you plan to let the Empress know that you're safe?" Huoling was a bit confused. "Not for now," Xiao Su calmly replied. His expression was calm, and no one could tell what he was thinking. Huoling did not ask any more questions. Turin stepped forward and reported, "Master, Water Spirit sent news today. There's still no news of the Love Grass, but she has already expanded the search area to several large countries in the surrounding area. Well, there's an underground trading city in Sichuan. Send some people to infiltrate and scout for information." The underground city was mixed with mermaids and people, but it was also the best place to scout for information. This was because there were people of all levels of various countries. It was the most secretive place to eat, drink, whore and gamble. It was the most mysterious place. Many rare treasures on the market could be seen everywhere inside. "I'll write a letter to Water Spirit later," Turin agreed. Huoling continued, "By the way, Master, the customs documents to enter Junlan have been completed. Once we enter the border, we can contact the people scattered in Junlan." "Well, we're just passing through. There's no need to disturb others." Xiao Su nodded. He never had to intervene in these matters. Huoling and the others would take care of it themselves. The others that their master mentioned did not need to be mentioned. They knew that it was the imperial family of Junlan. "Yes, Junlan, long time no see." Xiao Su looked out the window. The night was dark, and the cold wind whistled, but his eyes were calm. As soon as they returned to the room, Chu Qingyan was shocked to see that there was an extra person in the room. She patted her chest to calm her breath and said angrily, "Mother, why didn't you say anything? I thought a thief had entered." The fear of the assassination a few days ago had almost become a conditioned reflex. Mother Chu smiled and said, "I've never seen you so timid before." "Things are different now." Chu Qingyan walked straight to the table and poured a glass of water for her mother. Then she poured a glass for herself. After taking a sip, Chu Qingyan asked curiously, "Mother, why aren't you resting at this late hour? Why are you looking for me? Aren't you also not resting at this late hour? You're running around." Mother Chu raised her hand and tapped her nose gently, shaking her head with a smile. "I'm going to His Highness's room, not somewhere else to play. Your daughter has grown up. Don't worry," Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Mother Chu's heart skipped a beat when she heard her daughter say that. She was worried because her daughter had grown up, especially when she heard that she was going to the King of England's room at this late hour. She hesitated for a moment before saying, Kai, Mother wants to ask you, what do you think of His Royal Highness's character?" Chu Qingyan answered without hesitation. "He's elegant, handsome, distinguished right from wrong, selfless, respected the elderly and cherished the young." Before she could finish, Mother Chu interrupted her with a smile. "You silly girl. Why are you getting more and more ridiculous? Mother is asking you a serious question, not a joke. Chu Qingyan put down the glass and reached out to hug her mother. She smiled innocently. Mother, why are you suddenly asking me this question? I'm afraid that you'll be wronged. Along the way, His Royal Highness was not warm to others, and he was not warm enough to Kai either. If this continued, she was afraid that Kai would not receive the same response. Although it was normal for men to have multiple wives and concubines in the secular world, she also hoped that her daughter could be treated like a treasure by a man like Yuan. Perhaps it was because she had met Yuan in this life, who cared for her like a treasure. I won't be wronged. Actually, when you're not around, His Highness treats me very well. I feel that he's like a big brother who always tolerates me, Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Hearing this, Mother Chu could not help but think that she might be overthinking. Kai was still young and did not know what love was. In fact, Mother Chu was wrong. It was not that Kai did not know, but that she did not think of herself. What was love? It was just two people going through all kinds of ups and downs, supporting each other, and slowly learning to help each other in times of need. Chapter 306. Everyone set off early in the morning. As time went by, it was already December. Mr. Chu was wrapped up like a bear in a cotton-padded jacket. Dan Yang, I'm not cold. Why do you have to make me wear so much? Mr. Chu grumbled as he tugged at his clothes. You're not cold now because you're wearing so much. If you take it off, you'll be cold. Mrs. Chu took him by the hand and got into the carriage with a smile. Mr. Chu felt that his wife was right, so he stopped fussing about his clothes and climbed into the carriage clumsily. Chu Qingyan felt warm when she saw how her parents interacted with each other. Your father is lucky. At least he only became like a child after his head injury. He didn't become demented and couldn't take care of himself. I've seen many patients who became paralyzed or couldn't take care of themselves because of serious injuries. They became a burden to their families, and the whole family suffered. Cheng Yanluo stood beside her and followed her line of sight. She smiled and sighed with emotion. Chu Qingyan nodded. Thank the heavens for their kindness. No, it must be because your father was strong-willed when he fell into a coma. He didn't allow himself to sink into depravity. That's why he managed to retain a little consciousness. Otherwise, with his injuries, it would have been a problem for him to survive. She had done a thorough examination of Mr. Chu's head injury during her free time. The results shocked her. When she found out that Mr. Chu was a brave and skilled general, her surprise turned into admiration. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. She knew that her father, who was at the front line, had just received the news that her mother had given birth to her. He wanted to ask for leave to return home, but the war suddenly broke out, and he had to stay behind to fight. At that time, he missed her mother dearly and had high hopes for her. How could he bear to leave? Actually, I've already made up my mind. Whether Dad recovers or not, I'll take care of him for the rest of his life. Chu Qingyan's eyes curved into crescents and her smile was warmer than ever. Cheng Yanluo reached out to stroke the little girl's head. Not long after she put down her hand, she heard a cold voice. It's time to get in the carriage. Chu Qingyan replied with a smile. Coming. Then she looked up at Cheng Yanluo and said, Let's go. Cheng Yanluo retracted her hand from the little lass's body. She could faintly feel that Xiao Su's gaze was so cold that her fingers were almost frozen stiff. TSK, it was just a pat on the head. How petty. Cheng Yanluo grumbled inwardly. Then she slowly made her way to her carriage, looking straight ahead as she walked past Ethereal. In the carriage, Chu Qingyan looked at the thick stack of books on the table, and felt that her vision was blurry. This. She was so nervous that she couldn't finish her sentence. It's exactly what you think. Xiao Su didn't even look at her. Chu Qingyan still wanted to make a final struggle. Big ice cube, it's not good to read in the car. Once the car bumps, it will damage your vision. Are you doubting the wood spirit's craftsmanship? Xiao Su calmly replied. Chu Qingyan glanced at the carriage. She couldn't seem to go against her conscience and say that the carriage was bumpy. However, she was just saying it for show. She wouldn't reject any study that Big Ice Cube arranged for her. But once she flipped open the book, She was already dumbfounded. Big ice cube. How do you pronounce this word? Xiao face-bombed and reached out to take the book. Which word? She pointed at it modestly. This. Boom. It means rumble in this world. Chu Qingyan instantly felt her brain explode. It was just a simplified Chinese character. She couldn't read it after changing her clothes. No, she wasn't someone who would back down in the face of difficulties. Little guy, don't think that I won't recognize you just because you're wearing a vest. Chu Qingyan immediately picked up the book and started to gnaw on it. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the little fellow's rare serious expression. Only then did Xiao retract his thoughts from her. He hoped that she wouldn't fall asleep while reading like she did in the past. It had to be said that Xiao understood Chu Qingyan very well. It didn't take long for her to fall asleep. She had studied hard for 12 years to get into university, so she never picked up a book so seriously. She pinched her face and forced herself to wake up. She had already decided to work hard, so she wouldn't give up so easily. In her heart, there were still many things that she wanted to do. If she couldn't even take this first step, then how would she walk the rest of her path? Very quickly, she regained her concentration. However, this time, she brought out the same undying spirit that she had when she was preparing for the college entrance examination. Xiao originally thought that she would quickly act spoiled and beg for mercy. At least, that was what he thought before she kept nodding her head. But not long after, she seemed to be filled with fighting spirit. The only thing missing was the words, "I'm serious, don't disturb me," written all over her face. He smiled. It seemed that this little fellow had really made up her mind. Although he didn't know why she suddenly changed her mind, the result was always good. After watching for an hour, Chu Qingyan leaned against the wall of the carriage and let her eyes rest. She turned her head and saw that big ice block was resting on the couch with one hand supporting his face. With the warm sunset shining in, Chu Qingyan felt that this scene was very pleasing to the eye. Although he wasn't wearing a mask and had disguised himself as an ordinary person, there were some natural things that wouldn't change based on one's appearance. A person with outstanding temperament, no matter what they did, would still be noble and handsome. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but spread her hands on the couch and put her chin on them as she seriously looked at him. Because of this injury, most of Big Ice Block's martial arts were damaged. Before the poison was cured, he couldn't use his internal energy. His body wasn't as good as before, so the clothes she prepared for him this time were much thicker than before. For example, the black brocade robe he was wearing today was filled with warm rabbit fur. Around his neck was a circle of snow-white fox fur. Even his boots were padded with thick soles. Although his clothes were a little thick, they couldn't hide his slender and elegant figure. Thinking back to the time when she gave him the medicinal bath, his figure was quite standard. It seemed that some people, when wearing clothes, had an unimaginable figure that made people want to vomit blood. And Big Ice Block was such a type. When he wore clothes, he exuded an ascetic aura, but when he took off his clothes, he exuded an evil charm. Perhaps feeling Chu Qingyan's gaze, Xiao slowly opened his eyes. "Have you finished reading the book?" His clear eyes were cleaner than the washed sky. Chu Qingyan silently cursed in her heart. So Big Ice Block wasn't asleep and was caught peeping. "Yes, I've finished reading. Do you want to test me?" Chu Qingyan asked provocatively. "Seeing that you're so confident, there's no need." Xiao eyes revealed a trace of a smile. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. It was rare that she was willing to cooperate, but he wasn't willing. "Oh right, Big Ice Block, I have a question for you. You have to answer it with your heart." Chapter 307. Oh, Xiao raised his brows as he looked at her. He didn't know what this little fellow was up to this time. What kind of attitude was this? "Don't be perfunctory," Chu Qingyan emphasized again. Xiao changed into a more comfortable position and looked at her calmly. "Ask away." He thought that the little fellow would ask what they were going to eat tonight, or why people eat the radish that rabbits eat. He also asked her why the earth spirit always had a straight face. This was because she had always asked him these questions in the past. But when the little fellow asked in such a serious manner, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Big Ice Cube, If I had a magic lamp that could fulfill your wish, what would you ask for? Magic lamp? The little fellow said something he had never heard before. Wish. Xiao was slightly confused. Chu Qingyan nodded vigorously. That's right. It's something that you usually want, but can't get all of a sudden, but you really want it. I refused to answer such a non-existent hypothesis. Ever since he disguised himself, Xiao no longer referred to himself as this prince. No, just treat it as a hypothesis. Hurry up and answer. Chu Qingyan leaned over and continued to encourage him. Xiao had no choice but to say casually, then I'll let you grow up quickly. That way, this prince won't have to worry about you. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes when she heard this. He said it so reluctantly. No. You promised me that you would answer properly. Chu Qingyan jumped onto his bed and pushed his arm, looking like she wouldn't give up if he didn't answer. Xiao grabbed her waving hands with one hand and leaned closer to her curiously. Is this question very important? Chu Qingyan didn't notice how ambiguous their position was at this time. She was completely focused on him not cooperating. Of course it's important. This is related to. At this point, Chu Qingyan suddenly stopped. Oh no, she had almost blurted it out. What does it have to do with? Xiao raised his eyebrows. He had a feeling that the little fellow was hiding something from him. Sensing Big Ice Cube's suspicious gaze, Chu Qingyan immediately sat up straight and broke free from his grasp. She said angrily, I don't care. Are you going to tell me or not? He did not like to force people. If the little girl wanted to make a fuss, then let her. Seeing that he was ignoring her, Chu Qingyan was a little distressed. This person was unmoved by force or persuasion. How was she going to get information out of him? Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration. She turned around and chuckled at him. Big Ice Cube, I remember that you owed me something before. Then, when I was unconscious a few days ago, you also said that you would promise me something. Do you still remember? Don't go back on your words. When Xiao heard this, he felt a little funny. He thought that she was unconscious and didn't hear it. He didn't expect her to secretly remember it. A gentleman's promise is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. He already knew what she was going to do. Okay, then I'll sacrifice a condition in exchange for your answer. Chu Qingyan said proudly. In this world, what you want won't be too expensive. It can be found, but it won't be too ordinary. It would be best if it was within her ability. There's nothing I want. Xiao looked at her, his gaze a little erratic. Basically, he didn't want too much. Identity, status, fame and fortune. Chu Qingyan was shocked. Are you serious? Xiao came back to his senses and looked at her. His eyes were deep black. It could be seen that he was telling the truth. Chu Qingyan's face fell. A good condition in exchange for this answer. I'm losing out. When Xiao heard her complaint, he found it funny. The bitterness in his heart disappeared in a flash. He thought for a moment and said, If you tell me your purpose for asking this question, I'll give you another condition. How about it? When she heard this, she was a little tempted, but she rejected the idea in her heart. I don't have a purpose. Xiao heard this and closed his eyes to rest. Then there's no condition. Chu Qingyan sighed deeply. She watched as 2 conditions slipped away. There was only one left. It seemed like she had to use it sparingly in the future. But the Big Ice Cube said that he didn't want anything, which gave her a bigger headache. She knew that the Big Ice Cube's birthday was coming soon. It would be in half a month. But she didn't know what to give him. On her birthday, he had given her a star tower and a star. She didn't want to casually prepare a gift for him. She felt that this problem was more difficult than the mathematical Olympiad. Xiao heard her sigh. Although he was curious, he knew that she would say it sooner or later, so he didn't take it to heart. It was just that the words at that time were used as a joke by him many years later. Inside the red veil, there was a fragrant and soft woman. He lifted the chin of the person below him. His eyes seemed to hide thousands of stars, so bright that people didn't dare to look at them. His voice was ambiguous as he said playfully, Say, if my wish could be realized back then, wouldn't I have to wait until today? She bit her pearly white teeth and pursed her red lips. The color of red wine spread on her snow-white skin. Pervert. So my wife still has the strength to scold people? Their voices became lower and lower, turning into a lingering fragrance between their lips and teeth. The night was dark. This time, there was no village or shop, so they could only spend the night in the wilderness. Turin walked to his master and reported, "After another 2 days of walking, we will reach the border between Sichuan and Junlan." Xiao Su nodded. Go and make the arrangements. Yes. Big Ice Cube, is Junlan rich in clivia, so it got this name? Chu Qingyan heard their conversation and couldn't help but ask. No, my little ancestor, you mustn't think like that. Although the name Junlan sounds nice, the people inside, chi, they're called crafty and unreasonable. Hualing immediately jumped up to correct her when he heard this. Chu Qingyan was even more curious. You've been to Junlan? You've interacted with them? Hualing was instantly silenced by his little princess consort's question. Should he say it or not? Are you hiding something from me? Chu Qingyan revealed a faint smile. Say it. How are they crafty and unreasonable? Or are you jealous that they have more temperament than you, so you're smearing their reputation? Father Chu also jumped out at this time, looking like he was going to tickle them if they didn't say it. Hualing felt that he was really asking for trouble with his loose lips, so he immediately looked at Turin and the others. Unfortunately, they only gave him a look that said, "You're asking for trouble." Then they turned around and avoided his call for help. This subordinate suddenly remembered that there are many things to do, so I'll leave first. Hualing ran away like a wisp of smoke. Originally, Chu Qingyan had only wanted to tease him out of boredom. However, she did not expect him to be so hesitant to speak. This piqued her interest even more. What's more, she had noticed that Big Ice Cube was looking at the fire spirit with a pressuring gaze. Could it have something to do with Big Ice Cube? However, they were just passing by Junlan in a hurry this time. They would probably have to wait until they came back before they had time to tour Junlan. But what Chu Qingyan didn't know was that plans often couldn't keep up with changes. Chapter 308. Is there any unspeakable secret in Junlan? Cheng Yanluo leaned closer to her and poked her arm. There was a hint of curiosity in her voice. Chu Qingyan shrugged. I don't know either. Why don't you ask your senior? Maybe he knows. After hearing Chu Qingyan's suggestion, Cheng Yanluo snorted. Forget it. I don't want to talk to him. Along the way, this pair of enemies could be said to be one chasing and the other ignoring. Chu Qingyan thought that if this continued, Ethereal would be heartbroken. Thus she couldn't help but say, Sister Yanluo, I think I saw Ethereal's hand injured today. I don't know if it was cut when he was picking herbs. Why are you telling me this? Cheng Yanluo was stunned at first. Then she glared fiercely at Chu Qingyan. Why are you so fierce? I just wanted to ask if you have any ointment. I'll give it to him. Chu Qingyan was secretly holding back her laughter, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. Cheng Yanluo knew that she was in the wrong. She coughed softly and tried to cover it up. I don't have any ointment. Even if I did, I wouldn't give it to him. Chu Qingyan looked at Cheng Yanluo, who was about to leave angrily. She couldn't help but chuckle. This person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart was definitely going to get some ointment for Ethereal. At this moment, a big head came over. Chu Qingyan met the blinking eyes and immediately took a few steps back in fear. Father, don't you know that sometimes people can be scared to death? Chu Qingyan patted her chest. She wanted to cry but had no tears. I didn't scare you. You didn't hear me when I called you. Mr. Chu felt wronged. You called me just now? Why didn't I hear you? Chu Qingyan quickly comforted her childish father. Yes, if you don't believe me, I'll meow a few more times for you. In order to prove his innocence, Mr. Chu coughed and closed his eyes. Meow meow. Chu Qingyan was still looking forward to it at first, but after hearing it, her whole face froze. No wonder she was a little suspicious just now. When did a stray cat sneak into their side? Now she finally found the source. She patted her face. As expected, she couldn't expect too much from her father. Dad. Chu Qingyan grabbed her father's hand and almost covered her face. Don't shout. I'm here, I'm here. Look, you're the one who didn't hear it. You can't blame me. Chu Machen's father flipped over like a surf singing a song. Chu Qingyan quickly said, yes, 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 By the way, Kai Kai, what did you say to little Yama just now? He asked curiously. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. Actually, you're not allowed to lie to me. Children who lie have rotten tongues. Chu Machen's father said seriously. Chu Qingyan sighed. It's like this. Ethereal and Sister Yanluo are fellow apprentices, and they have a good relationship. However, when Ethereal left the sect a few years ago, he had some disagreements with Sister Yanluo. As a result, they don't have any contact with each other. I just wanted to take the opportunity to bring them together. As doctors, if they are happy, I think His Highness's injury and your illness will recover faster. Perhaps they would be happy and have a flash of inspiration. Then, they wouldn't have to travel thousands of miles to find these strange herbs. Kai Kai, what you said makes sense. Should I go and help them? Chu Machen's father rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was about to make a bold and decisive decision. Chu Qingyan hurriedly helped him pull up his sleeves. Dad, you should just watch from the sidelines. Don't get involved. Although Chu Machen's father didn't agree, he still felt that the reason the two of them hadn't reconciled was because he hadn't helped them. Therefore, he already had a plan in mind. If Chu Qingyan knew what her father was planning, she would definitely pray to the heavens to bless this quarrelsome couple. By the way, I think the young man you've taken in is not bad. Chu Machen's father commented. Chu Qingyan raised her chin and said without much pride, that's right. Look at who took him in. He has good looks and martial arts skills. He's not inferior to anyone in any way. Chu Machen's father smiled. Not bad, not bad. I think Xining is not bad either. Of course. Xining is well-behaved and obedient. She's clever and skillful. She can be said to be my right-hand woman. Chu Qingyan followed her father's words and praised her. Then let's make them a couple. They're a match made in heaven. Chu Machen's father clapped his hands in approval. Chu Qingyan's jaw dropped in shock. Dad, you're just randomly matching a couple. This was too unreliable. Isn't this a good idea? I think the two of them look like husband and wife. Chu Machen's father rubbed his chin and said confidently. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. If Imperial Grandfather was here, he would definitely have a lot to talk about with her father. They would talk about how a quack was made. Dad, Xining and Jean Xian are still so young. They can't tell. Chu Qingyan felt that she couldn't let her father continue like this. Otherwise, the whole team would fall apart. Chu Machen's father's face stiffened. Aren't you still young? You picked up a bunch of scallions and brought them home to be your son-in-law. That's why you don't know that a lot of people nowadays have to be groomed from a young age. It's the same for couples. In any case, you'll be together in the future. Why don't you nurture them in advance? This way, your days of loving each other will be extended for a few more years. Chu Qingyan's head hurt from her father's nonsense. Although it made sense after listening carefully, Chu Qingyan endured the sweat on her forehead and advised, Dad, let's put this matter aside for now. If the two of them like each other in a few years, I'll make the decision for them. Chu Machen's father winked proudly. He would put this matter aside for now. When he remembered, he would matchmake them. Aya, why was he so busy? At this moment, Chu Machen's father suddenly remembered something important. Kai Kai, isn't it our son-in-law's birthday in a few days? As soon as he said this, Chu Qingyan immediately shushed him. Dad, lower your voice. Otherwise, you won't be able to give His Highness a surprise. Oh, right. It must be a surprise. What gift should Dad prepare? Chu Machen's father was delighted and began to ponder hard. It's fine. As long as it can express your feelings, it's fine, Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Then Dad will go back and have a good discussion with your mother. Chu Machen's father turned to leave, his mouth still muttering. I don't know how to make clothes. I don't know how to carve things. I don't know how to dance. Aya, why am I so stupid? Seeing her father's back figure dilly-dallying, Chu Qingyan let out a sigh of relief. With this matter to deal with, her father would be able to put aside a lot of his thoughts and wouldn't harm others. Unfortunately, the results were relative. Jin Xian was playing with his weapon when someone appeared beside him. He looked at the shadow on the ground and saw that it was Hualing. Master is looking for you. He's waiting for you in the forest in front. Chapter 309. Jin Xian put away the sword in his hand. Although he was puzzled as to why the King of England was looking for him, he remembered that when he first became his master's subordinate, he was also looked for by the King of England once. He had a guess in his heart that it should have something to do with his master. As soon as he arrived at the forest, he saw the person who was facing him. Although his appearance was ordinary and this common face couldn't be found even if it was submerged in the crowd, but the way he stood there in contemplation made people unable to move their eyes away. He sighed in his heart. Some people were born noble. Even if they wore coarse linen clothes, they were still outstanding. Some people were born coarse. Even if they wore brocade clothes, it couldn't hide their original nature. You're here. Hearing the sound, Xiao didn't turn around. He looked forward and said in a gentle voice, "Yes, I don't know why the eldest young master is looking for Jin Xian." In the outside world, Xiao was the eldest young master and Chu Qingyan was the youngest young master. "I saw that you have been practicing swordsmanship recently. How is it going?" Xiao asked. Jin Xian was slightly surprised. He didn't expect the King of England to know that he had been practicing martial arts in his free time. He thought that the King of England only cared about business and his master. No, he forgot. In fact, the King of England paid attention to him because he was concerned about his master's potential performance. Recently, Jin Xian has been practicing martial arts in his free time, but his aptitude is not good. There are some moves that I don't understand. The memories in my mind are fragmented, and even the moves are mixed up. Jin Xian didn't hide anything and reported truthfully. In fact, he had been puzzled for a long time. But recently, Hualing and the others seemed to be very busy. He didn't want to disturb them, and could only guess blindly. Moreover, he was injured before, so he was more or less affected. After listening to Jin Xian's words, Xiao nodded. You don't have to keep practicing according to the moves in your memory. Sometimes you can only use the body's reaction to make a smooth move. Most of the moves that catch the opponent off guard come from following your heart's desire. Jin Xian was a little surprised. Was the King of England giving him pointers? These words seemed to be very beneficial to him. This is a sword manual. If you're interested, take it and practice. Xiao slowly turned around and handed the book in his hand to him. Jin Xian was flattered. He hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take the book. Why do you want to guide Jin Xian? He didn't believe that there was such a thing as a free lunch in this world, so he mustered up his courage and asked. Your mistress is still young, and her ability to protect herself is still lacking. Therefore, she needs you to assist her. Xiao paused his steps. After he finished speaking, he walked towards the little fellow in the bonfire who was smiling like a flower. Jin Xian understood. Sure enough, it was for the master. However, when he lowered his head and saw the words on the cover of the book, he was immediately stunned. The Imperial Sword Manual. It was one of the 3 great sword manuals in the world. It was a martial art manual that the sword maniac fought over. Jin Xian stared at the unhurried figure with wide eyes. His heart was filled with excitement. Big Ice Cube, where have you been? Chu Qingyan looked at the person walking over, and asked with a smile. Admiring the moon. Chu Qingyan looked at the sky. There were no stars or moon. She was speechless. Big Ice Cube, how elegant. They would arrive in Junlan tomorrow. However, because the border between the 2 countries was basically deserted or overgrown with trees, they had to sleep in the wilderness all the way. As a result, they hadn't had a good bath in the past few days. Coincidentally, they found a hot spring near a hidden cliff. Little girl, let's go to the hot spring. I haven't had a good bath in the past few days. As a clean freak, I can't take it anymore. Cheng Yanluo tugged at her, and talked with a pained expression. Before Chu Qingyan could reply, Cheng Yanluo continued to brainwash her. You don't know, but the hot spring in the winter is very romantic. The spring water is warm. It can train one's willpower, maintain one's health, stretch one's muscles and bones, relieve fatigue, dredge one's meridians, and prolong one's life. For us women, it can moisturize the skin, nourish the skin, and resist aging. It can be said to be a great panacea. Cheng Yanluo rattled off a lot of things. Then she put her hands on Chu Qingyan's shoulders, who was a little dizzy from her persuasion. Like a wolf grandmother, she tempted. Little girl, I have a unique massage technique. Do you want to try it? Chu Qingyan immediately nodded. With a beauty by my side, surrounded by mist, it's very romantic. Soak, why wouldn't I? Chu Qingyan revealed a covetous look, which made Cheng Yanluo bend over with laughter. Thus, Chu Qingyan and the others happily prepared to soak in the hot spring. Before leaving, Chu Qingyan ran to Xiao. Big Ice Cube, Huling and the others found a hot spring. I heard that there are 2 pools. We women will use one, and you can soak in the other one. Chu Qingyan didn't forget to repeat Cheng Yanluo's words, but changed the benefits for women to that for men to strengthen their bodies and strengthen their willpower. Seeing the little guy jumping around eagerly, Xiao was a little hesitant. Chu Qingyan, who had been left behind because of Big Ice Cube's instructions, was startled by her father's sudden appearance. Father, are you also going to soak in the hot spring? You can go with His Highness. No, father has a plan, but I can't tell anyone. Father Chu said mysteriously. What plan? Although Chu Qingyan was eager to soak in the hot spring, she felt that her father's plan was more attractive because she was worried that her father would make trouble again. Hee. Father Chu smiled slyly. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that something was wrong. Little girl? Qingyan? Cheng Yanluo went to the hot spring and looked at the misty pool. She was a little tempted. Since she couldn't call Chu Qingyan, she thought that she must have been delayed by something, so she didn't wait for her. Although she was dressed in coarse linen clothes, her beautiful body was hidden in the mist after she took off her belt. She lifted the tip of her foot to tap the water. When she felt that the temperature was just right, she stepped into the pool with ease. Father, what did you do? Chu Qingyan had a bad premonition. Morongju, get out of here. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she heard a shrill voice. Wasn't that Yanluo's voice? Father. Chu Qingyan looked at her father, who was smiling slyly, and called out tentatively. It couldn't be what she had guessed. Father, you asked Xining to steal little Yama's clothes. Then, you pretended to tell Kong that little Yama was in urgent need of clothes, but he wasn't feeling well. Then you gave him the clothes and asked him to deliver them. Then your daughter will be hunted down. Chu Qingyan ran away. Chu Qingyan, where are you? Come out. I promise I won't beat you to death. The Yama's death warrant was coming. Chu Qingyan couldn't care about anything else. She used her lightness skill and went to the other side of the hill. Unfortunately, she didn't know that there was another hot spring there. When she stood at the top of the hill, she caught a glimpse of the familiar clothes by the side of the pool. Her head was steamed by the mist and she panicked. The stone she stepped on loosened, and she fell into the pool. Chapter 310. The moment her foot missed, Chu Qingyan's mind only had 3 words left. It's all over. Although this height wasn't high, if she fell down with her body, it would be hard for her to survive. What was even more frightening was that she seemed to see a few white figures in her peripheral vision. She quickly covered her eyes and waited for her to fall into the water. She hoped that she wouldn't be too embarrassed when the time came. Chu Qingyan was already prepared to bear the brunt of the waves, but the moment she fell into the water, she felt 2 strong arms supporting her from behind. Using the slowing force of the water beneath her, the force of her fall was reduced, and she was firmly fixed in place. Her first thought was, I'm saved. Her second thought was, this skin is so smooth. Her third thought was, She desperately covered her eyes and loudly explained, I didn't do it on purpose, please believe me. She didn't know who was hugging her, but they were all her own people. She felt that she had lost all face. Xiao looked at the little fellow in his arms. She was like a little hedgehog that didn't dare to see the light, and his lips curled. Suddenly, he heard whispers and laughter not far away. Xiao coldly looked over and Hualing and the others immediately shut up. They automatically went ashore and quietly took the clothes on the shore, putting them on before leaving. Who told their master to not let the little princess be embarrassed, so they could only feel wronged and sneak away. Because they had been on the battlefield for a long time, it was normal for them to eat and sleep together. Moreover, their master was the kind of person who wouldn't be estranged from the soldiers, so when they bathed together by the river, their master had never refused. But today, they were only halfway through their bath when the little princess came out. What a pity, what a pity! Although Hualing and the others didn't make a sound when they left, the subtle sound of water still entered Chu Qingyan's ears. She covered her hands even tighter. Moreover, mixed in with the sulfur smell of the hot spring was a faint familiar ink fragrance. She suddenly realized, Big Ice? Do you still want to be an ostrich? She didn't know if it was because of the warmth of the hot spring, but it no longer sounded cold and even had a hint of ridicule. Hearing his voice, Chu Qingyan instantly let out a sigh of relief. She blinked and her eyelashes tickled her palms. She carefully asked, Did they all leave? They're staying to watch the play? His voice entered her ears again. Oh, then quickly put me down. Her entire body was submerged in the spring, but she was held in place by his arms, so she didn't sink. Although she had never soaked in hot springs, she had never eaten pork, but she had seen pigs run. Normally, hot springs wouldn't be too deep. Are you sure? Xiao Su looked at the person who was still covering his eyes and asked doubtfully. She nodded vigorously and did not hear the teasing in his words. Turn your back, I'll go ashore in a while. Xiao Su smiled and said, Okay. To answer. Chu Qingyan was overjoyed. She let go of her hands and closed her eyes. She was prepared to turn and leave when he reached the bottom. But, what the hell? Her neck was already submerged, but she still hadn't reached the bottom? Gurgle gurgle, help? Ah. Splash. Just as she was struggling, her collar was suddenly pulled out of the water by a force. Cough cough, she spat out water in a panic. Her eyes were dry and her ears were full of water. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that the world was full of malice towards her. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow whose face was red from choking and shook his head with a smile. You can only blame yourself for being too short and the water is too deep, so you still have to eat the carrots. Chu Qingyan felt like she had been stabbed by the big ice cube again. After wiping off the water on her face, her vision cleared, and a smooth and well-built chest came into view. TSK, she forgot to cover her eyes. Chu Qingyan felt that it was too late even if she covered her eyes. She hugged her shoulders and turned her gaze away in a huff. The big ice cube should have guessed it long ago, but he still let her enter the water. He must want to see her make a fool of herself. He didn't know where the little fellow's temper came from. Was it because he teased her just now? However, he could guess that the little fellow was feeling awkward. Xiao Su didn't care much. Usually, when he bathed in a group, he would wear pants so he wasn't afraid of being exposed. Moreover, the little fellow was still young, so he didn't care about the boundaries between men and women. If Chu Qingyan knew what he was thinking, she would probably faint from anger. She was still a pure and innocent girl. I want to go back to the shore. Chu Qingyan didn't persist for long before she gave in. She had to leave this place quickly. If she saw something she shouldn't see. Also, the collar was making her uncomfortable. Xiao Su didn't refuse. He knew that he had teased her enough, and that it was time to put her back. Thus, he waded towards the shore with her. Because Chu Qingyan fell into the water a little far away, she finally negotiated with him with a red face. Can you not hold my collar? I can't breathe. In the dense fog, the girl's slightly coquettish tone could be heard. Xiao Su's eyes moved. His hand that was holding her collar moved to her waist. He didn't say anything and continued to move forward. After feeling a little better, Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. Strictly speaking, she had to thank the big ice cube for saving her. Otherwise, with the depth just now, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to keep her life. Add swimming to the must-learn skills, Xiao Su suddenly said. Chu Qingyan's face fell. She had escaped being forced to learn swimming, but she couldn't escape this. It seemed that everything was destined. Why did you run for your life? Xiao Su continued to ask. Chu Qingyan finally remembered the reason why she ran all the way just now. Her face paled. Wasn't it because Daddy wanted to help Ethereal and Yanluo? Who knew that he would go for wool and come home shorn? Instead, he killed his daughter. This was indeed something that her father would do. Xiaosu didn't think much of it. At this moment, there was a sudden clap of thunder. Chu Qingyan, where are you hiding? Come out. An angry roar was heard. Xiaosu frowned when he heard the voice. He felt something strange on his body. He lowered his head, only to see a furry head. His limbs were entangled by her like an octopus. Her clothes were soaked, while his upper body was naked. Xiaosu was a little startled. When he subconsciously wanted to lift her up, he didn't expect her to cling to him tightly. Her eyes were bright, sparkling, and as soft as water. Big Ice Cube, I don't want to be cut into 8 pieces by Yanluo. You have to save me. Looking into her watery eyes, the hand that had stopped in midair finally fell gently. I've never seen you so timid. His tone was disdainful, but his actions were gentle. A barefooted person isn't afraid of wearing shoes. I'm afraid that she has all kinds of poisonous powders, poisons, scorpions, and silver needles. If she uses me to refine medicine one day, I'll be done for. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry, but had no tears. She didn't realize how tempting their position was. Chapter 311. How do you want me to help you? Xiaosu was amused when he heard her. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. This was indeed a difficult problem. She rolled her eyes and said, since Sister Yanluo can't find me, why don't we go out tonight to avoid trouble? Are you sure? Yes, I'm very sure. Hence, a bonfire was set up near the hot spring. Next to it was a temporary drying rack with Chu Qingyan's clothes and accessories. She sat by the bonfire, wearing Xiaosu's loose clothes. She raised her arms and felt that she could sing in an opera in these clothes. She wrapped herself in the clothes and smelled a faint fragrance. She blinked and buried her nose in the clothes. It smelled really good. She raised her head and looked at the man who was adding firewood to the fire. He was only wearing a thin shirt and looked calm. He was only adding to the fire, but his posture was very elegant. This was the first time she could do such a small thing as if it was just brewing tea or playing chess. It mainly depended on one's temperament. Xiaosu watched her fiddle with the clothes for a long time. He put down the firewood and waved at her. Come here. Chu Qingyan leaned over when she heard him. Xiaosu naturally raised his hand to help her roll up her long sleeves and straighten her slightly open lapels. Chu Qingyan was curious when she felt his meticulous care. Big Ice Cube, have you taken care of others before? Do you think that I need to take care of others? Xiaosu retracted his hand with a look of disdain on his face. She had even used the word prince. It seemed like she had asked a stupid question. However, she couldn't help but be suspicious. She felt that Big Ice Cube was getting more and more familiar with taking care of others. When did this start? Xiaosu saw through her thoughts and suppressed the twitching of his eyes. She was really taking advantage of him. Until now, she was the only one who could get his care and concern. However, he knew that most children at this age were ingrates, so he didn't take it to heart. Suddenly, the little guy came over and unfolded his coat, draping it over the two of them. Big Ice Cube, let's put it on together. You won't feel cold. Chu Qingyan carefully put it on him. I don't need it. Xiaosu pretended to take it away, but she stopped him. Do you know that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2? Sometimes it's greater than 2. For example, our bodies can warm each other up. It's not as simple as just our body temperature. Chu Qingyan said seriously. Xiaosu felt that her head was filled with too many fallacious theories. If she could apply them to her studies, she would be able to reach a higher level. However, he did not reject her. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. She was right. It would be warmer this way. Big Ice Cube, you're really good to me. Thinking back on the past, Chu Qingyan felt a little emotional. It's good that you know, Xiaosu replied casually. Will you always be so good to me? People are always greedy. After they get it, they will want more. She was afraid of the impermanence of the world, afraid of the 8 hardships of life, birth, old age, illness and death, love and separation, resentment for a long time, can't let go, afraid that something that is still in front of her will disappear in the blink of an eye. Tonight she didn't understand. She just followed her heart and asked. A long time later, when she understood the meaning of love, she realized that what she wanted that night was just a promise. Hearing this, he thought it was a child's uneasiness, but he always kept his word. He would not lie, let alone be perfunctory, so he was silent for a moment, thinking seriously. In my lifetime. Saying forever was too harsh, because he didn't know how far she was talking about forever. Her whole life. Or his whole life. He didn't know how long her life was, and he couldn't decide how long he could live. Then in my lifetime, when I'm alive, I'll always be the same to you. Promise too long, I'm afraid I can't do it. Chu Qingyan didn't know that her casual question had turned his heart over 1,000 times before he gave her this answer. Me too. She smiled sweetly. But her heart twitched when she recalled Su Jian's words. Taking advantage of the dark night and the two of them being alone, she mustered up her courage and said softly, "If there comes a day when I have no choice but to leave, you have to live well too. You can't be bullied by others." No one had told her that she had transmigrated here. She was afraid that one day, she would also mysteriously leave. When Xiao heard this, he retracted his gaze and looked at her. His small face was filled with loneliness. His large hand fell and pinched her small face. "This prince feels that I've raised a little ingrate." When she was by his side, she was already thinking about the future when she would no longer be around. At this time, the crackling of the firewood covered his words. Chu Qingyan only cared about the pain of her cheeks being pinched. Hey, big ice block, please be a gentleman and don't bully a lady." "Would a lady jump off a cliff and disturb others soaking in a hot spring?" he retorted. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. This person really holds a grudge. Where did the cold-blooded Prince of Ing who had no desires and no desires go? Quietly nestled in his arms, Chu Qingyan felt that his embrace was just enough to fill her space. "Big ice block, I think we look like Ali and Inuyasha." Xiao raised his eyebrows. Another strange name. Xiao didn't ask and she didn't explain. She just sat there quietly. Some people said that the people closest to you wouldn't feel awkward even if they stayed silent. She and Big Ice Cube were probably the closest people to each other. She felt that this was quite good. The night was getting darker, and the person in his arms had fallen asleep. The little fellow had changed into her own clothes, but his clothes were still covering the two of them. He had been used to such cold at the border, but he was afraid that she couldn't stand it. He continued to add firewood. In fact, he didn't understand why he didn't refuse when she said that she wanted to come out to seek refuge. Was Cheng Yanluo worth him being afraid of? It was just that at that time, he was soft-hearted, or perhaps he couldn't ignore her pleading eyes. At this time, the two of them were snuggling alone in the cold wind. In a magnificent palace in the Junlan state. A maid hurried into a splendid room. "Mistress, this servant has already received news that His Highness King Ing will enter our borders tomorrow." The maid spoke very quickly because she knew that her mistress was waiting for this news. Rose Danku fell on the table instantly. Her jade fingers and the emerald stone table reflected each other, making them look even whiter and more lustrous. "Is the news reliable?" "I guarantee that it's 100% reliable." They all knew how much their master valued His Royal Highness. This news had not been verified dozens of times, so they would never dare to report it. "Good. He's finally here." Her voice was as smooth as a pearl, and she was very happy. Chapter 312. Xiao looked at the peaceful appearance of the person in his arms and smiled. She was usually noisy and lively like a kitten, but when she was asleep, she was very well behaved. He knew that when he was wrongly imprisoned, she was brave and smart, doing everything possible to prove his innocence. When he was unconscious, she was stubborn and strong, desperately wanting him to live. Everyone had 1,000 faces, but he hoped that she only needed to live a carefree life. The fire slowly burned out and the surroundings darkened. He didn't continue to add wood. He had let her fool around for a night, and it was time to go back. Xiao Su stood up with the person in his arms, crossed the bonfire that only had a few sparks left, and slowly walked to the other side of the road. A long time later, when someone asked her what had left the deepest impression on her during her growing up, she would answer with a smile. Chu Qingyan smiled. There should be someone who was willing to tolerate her foolishness with the greatest tolerance. The most ridiculous thing was that it was most likely to last until the end of time. When the two of them returned to the station, Cheng Yanluo came up to them angrily. But when she saw Chu Qingyan sleeping peacefully, she took a deep breath and turned around. "Miss Cheng." Xiao Su called out to her. Cheng Yanluo was surprised that this person, who was usually unapproachable, would take the initiative to talk to her. But before she could calm down, Cheng Yanluo turned around and said rudely, "Young Master Xiao, what advice do you have for me?" "Miss Cheng, I think that if you care about Ethereal, you should bury the hatchet. If you are tired of him," Xiao Su looked at her deeply, "let's cut him in half and end it all." Cheng Yanluo stood rooted to the ground. She stared blankly as he carried Chu Qingyan behind her. Suddenly she chuckled. "Young Master Xiao, you haven't experienced the feeling of liking someone, have you?" Xiao Su stopped in his tracks and frowned, but he didn't turn around. Cheng Yanluo turned around and looked at Xiao Su's back. She smiled mischievously. "How can you understand the feeling of not being able to love someone, and not being able to hate someone when you've never loved someone?" Xiao Su did not deny her words. Indeed, he had never been in love before. "What about you?" Xiao Su asked. "Me." Cheng Yanluo was stunned and said in an angry voice. "Then he must know more than you. Morongju, that bastard." As soon as she finished speaking, she saw the person standing under the tree with his back facing the fire. His white robes fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were filled with joy. Xiao Su didn't say anything more because he didn't need to. He lifted the person in his arms and continued forward. "Thank you, Master." He heard this as he passed by Ethereal. "Go." Xiao Su didn't say anything else and walked back to his carriage. When he reached a corner where no one could see him, Xiao Su curled his lips. "When are you going to stop pretending to be asleep?" The person in his arms slowly opened her eyes and smiled ingratiatingly. "Big Ice Cube, I just woke up. I heard you talking to Sister Yanluo, so I didn't want to disturb you." "Don't talk like that." Xiao Su corrected her and put her down. Chu Qingyan saluted him. "Yes, Master." Seeing Big Ice Cube get on the horse carriage, Chu Qingyan wanted to get on as well. However, she heard a familiar meow. Chu Qingyan's eyes twitched and she turned around. "Father, why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing here?" "I'm not worried that little Yama will harm you." Mr. Chu looked aggrieved. Chu Qingyan was touched and hugged her father. "Father, you're so kind." However, while Chu Qingyan was touched, she forgot that her father was the one who had started all this. Mr. Chu chuckled. "It's good that you know. Oh yeah, where did you go with Green Onion?" Chu Qingyan pulled away from her father's embrace and looked at him suspiciously. "Are you here to fish for information?" "No, I'm just asking." Mr. Chu's eyes darted around. He didn't look trustworthy at all. "Father, you're getting more and more nosy. Don't forget that you were the one who made Ethereal and Sister Yanluo get together. The war implicated me and caused me to fall from the mountain." The more Chu Qingyan spoke, the more indignant she felt. Quelling and the rest wouldn't think that she was a peeping Tom, would they? "Kai, don't forget that I was the one who made it possible for you and Green Onion to spend time alone tonight," Mr. Chu said mischievously. "Isn't this what they mean by unintentionally planting a green onion and growing a shade?" "Yes, unintentionally planting a willow and growing a shade?" Chu Qingyan felt that her father's way of thinking was on a completely different level. "Father, don't get involved in Ethereal and Sister Yanluo's matters anymore. We're outsiders, so we should just watch. I'm afraid that the more we help, the more trouble we'll cause," Chu Qingyan said earnestly. She didn't know how much her father would listen to, but she had to say it anyway. Mr. Chu didn't think much of it. "If I hadn't done all this, would Hollow have been able to talk to the little king of hell?" "Father, that wasn't talking. That was physical violence." She wasn't wrong. She saw the obvious handprint on Ethereal's face. Mr. Chu scratched his head. It's true that I didn't think it through thoroughly. Chu Qingyan nodded. It seemed that her father had listened to her and was about to get into the carriage. Next time, I'll think of something else. Chu Qingyan's leg tilted and she almost fell. Mr. Chu clenched his fists and encouraged himself. Then he rushed back to his carriage excitedly. Cough cough. Ethereal, Yanluo, you're on your own now. Chu Qingyan climbed into the carriage on all fours. It wasn't until she got into the carriage that Chu Qingyan realized in hindsight that Big Ice Cube must have heard everything she and her father had said. She felt a little embarrassed. After all, part of what her father had said was about her and him. However, the moment she got into the carriage, Big Ice Cube told her, "The hand warmer is over there. Take it yourself." She looked at the hand warmer lying on the couch and heaved a sigh of relief. Okay. The sky was gradually turning bright. She had just taken a nap, so she wasn't sleepy. She sat in the carriage, feeling a little bored. She recalled Yanluo's question and was extremely curious. Big Ice Cube, if you meet the woman you like one day, what will you do? Xiao slowly opened his eyes. It was a little dark in the carriage, but his eyes were slightly bright. Chu Qingyan felt that Big Ice Cube's eyes were really beautiful. However, when he looked at her like that, she felt a little guilty. Nevertheless, she still had expectations for his answer. There's no need to answer this kind of assumption. Xiao closed his eyes again. Chu Qingyan felt a little disappointed. However, she soon cheered up. She propped up her chin and said longingly, "If I meet the person I like one day, I'll definitely treat him very, very well." Very, very well? How good would that be? Xiao frowned. Was there anyone better than him who would treat her better? Why aren't you sleeping? I can't sleep. If you say you're sleepy tomorrow, go out and ride a horse. Chu Qingyan's little longing was shattered just like that. Big Ice Cube was so fierce. Chapter 313. Early in the morning, the group set off for the border of Junlan. Not far ahead was the place where the inspection was conducted. Why is it so strict this time? What happened? Xiao raised his eyebrows less than 100 meters away from the city gate. He summoned Hualing and asked, "I don't know either. I heard that the higher-ups gave the order to tighten the security. Fortunately, we obtained a customs document before. Otherwise, it would be difficult to enter the city now." He had sent people to investigate the matter of strengthening the security, but unfortunately, they found nothing. It could only be said that this order came out of nowhere. Yes, when we enter the pass later, no matter what happens, you are not allowed to make a move. Xiao had no clue at this time, but he vaguely felt that this matter was a little strange. As far as he knew, Junlan had been peaceful on the surface in recent years, but there had been internal strife. However, its diplomatic relations with other countries were still good. The Emperor of Junlan shouldn't be most concerned about the border. Yes. Hualing nodded. Even without the master's orders, they wouldn't act rashly. After all, there was no need for Sichuan here. A strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. Chu Qingyan faintly felt that something was wrong from the conversation between the two. Could it be that there would be some changes in Junlan? Xiao turned around and met her worried eyes. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" "Big Ice Cube, it's been half a month. We can't make any mistakes." Chu Qingyan was worried. "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Xiao wasn't good at comforting people. This was the only thing he could say. Chu Qingyan nodded. However, even with his assurance this time, she still felt uneasy. Because they came to Junlan as merchants and had proof of their previous dealings, they quickly passed through. The place they arrived at was the town on the edge of Junlan. It could be said that it was the most chaotic place. There were merchants from various countries, as well as people from the pugilistic world. There were also many petty thieves. Chu Qingyan and company kept a low profile, but the goods in the carriage had attracted the attention of others. However, Hualing and the others were well built, and it was obvious that they were not easy to bully. Those greedy eyes only glanced at them for a second or two, before reluctantly looking away. "Mistress, I heard that Junlan is very rich, but why does this town look so dilapidated?" Xining asked curiously. Xining couldn't be blamed for asking such a question, because as soon as they entered the city, they saw the flying yellow soil, dilapidated houses, and broken wine flags. The passers-by were in a hurry, and they rarely saw any good cloth on their bodies. Except for the foreigners, whose clothes were slightly better, they basically wore coarse linen clothes, and there were beggars everywhere. Because this is the border between countries, once a war breaks out, these places will be the first to bear the brunt. Needless to say, there will be damage and destruction. Therefore, most emperors will not spend too much effort to develop these places, because if the flames of war ignite, they will not feel too much of a pity. Before Chu Qingyan could answer, Jean Xian, who had gotten off the carriage to lead the horse, answered. Jean Xian's expression was normal, and he didn't even think before answering. This made Chu Qingyan a little surprised. Jean Xian, I didn't expect you to know so much. This subordinate doesn't know either. Chu Qingyan's words made him stop in his tracks. In fact, he also didn't understand why he knew these things. Mistress is Jean Xian, right? Xining turned her head to ask. Chu Qingyan nodded. Jean Xian is right. In order not to waste resources, emperors will not develop the economy here, so the people living in the towns around the border will be prepared to pack up and flee at any time when war breaks out. Xining nodded, indicating that she understood. Turin, I feel like I'm falling behind more and more. I actually see 3 10-year-old children discussing this kind of national policy. Shouldn't they be playing with mud at this age? Hualing was a little shocked. Turin looked at him with disdain. At this age, I've already learned 2 sets of spear techniques. Wood Spirit also followed up. At the young master's age, I can already carve 8 immortals crossing the sea out of palm-sized wood. Ethereal didn't fall behind. At that time, I had already started studying medicine. Developing more than 10 kinds of poisons wasn't a problem. Hualing felt very hurt. He was just complaining. When he was 10 years old, he was thrown off a cliff by his master and learned Qinggong, alright? At this time, Father Chu walked over and patted his shoulder. He said regretfully, "It's fine, you can still learn a lot more right now. I'll reluctantly teach you how to dance." Hualing's lips twitched. He lowered his left shoulder and slowly escaped from Father Chu's evil clutches. Then he said with a grateful expression, "Thank you, this subordinate still feels that sword dancing is more suitable for me." Father Chu looked at Hualing, who had slipped away, and gave a slight sigh. He said with incomparable regret, "Few bosom friends, who would listen when the string is broken? Yuanlang, what are you still standing there for? It's time to eat." Hey, you're here. What are we eating for lunch? Chu Machen's father immediately put away his enigmatic look and skipped over to him. They were currently in a tea house. Although the exterior was open and the entire building was about to tilt, what was surprising was that it was still standing properly. If you wanted to understand a place, you had to go to the place where the crowd flowed the fastest. When their group sat down, the waiter came up to inquire. "I want to eat beggar's chicken, braised lion's head in brown sauce, and 8 kinds of rare mushrooms." When Father Chu opened his mouth, the people at the surrounding tables broke out in laughter. Father Chu scratched his head and asked the person beside him, Kai, did Father say something wrong? Are the names of these dishes funny?" Chu Qingyan tugged on her father's sleeve and whispered, "Father, these places don't have the dishes you want." "Oh, then I'll change to something else." Father Chu thought very seriously, then said to the waiter, "Then just give us any abalone or sea cucumber." The waiter was in a difficult position. "Sir, we don't have those that swim in the water. Those that fly in the sky are fine too." Father Chu looked like he was in a difficult position. Chu Qingyan really had to hand it to her father. "Brother waiter, just serve whatever signature dishes you have here." Chu Qingyan spoke up to save the waiter from his embarrassment. "All right, sir." Father Chu shook his head in disappointment. "There's nothing good to eat." The people around them couldn't stop laughing. However, because of Father Chu's jesting, many of the people around them shifted their vigilant gazes away. It was just a pair of young masters bringing a pair of foolish parents out, so there was nothing to be vigilant about. While waiting for the dishes, Chu Qingyan heard drinking, playing finger-guessing games, and all sorts of discussions coming from all around. Hey Brother Su, have you heard? The imperial court is going to be in turmoil again. Brother Su, what do you mean? Our emperor just ascended the throne not long ago. What could happen? Two people dressed like scholars were discussing in low voices. Xiao Su's hand that was holding the teacup paused, his eyes dark. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.